Ayang magiliw pero sa silangan, alalaw ng puso, sa itig mo'y buhay. Lupang ninirang, duyan ka ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisihil. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoya, sa langit pabaga, may nilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Lupa ng araw ng ating pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Sa piling mo, ang ibigay araw pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Panginoon, ng san sinukob, alay namin ang aming buhay bilang alagad ng iyong bayan. Tulungan mo kaming maging tapat sa panunungkulan.
Batid naming lahat ang tukso ng yaman, iwasin mo kami sa kasakiman. Batid namin ang udyok ng kadiliman, dulutan mo kami ng kalasag ng katapangan. Sa lakas at mapasarili kaliwalian. Kami ngayon'y naglalakbay sa lupang nais-nan. Ilawan mo, Diyos, ang landas ng katarungan. Ilatag ang busilang mong liwanag. Tungo sa pagmamahalan at tunay na pagkakaisa, hanggang sa makamit namin kapayapaan at na maibalik namin laman ng bayan.
Aarugain ang ganda ng kalikasan, hahanguin mga anak mo sa kahirapan, sa pagsasabuhay ng iyong katotohanan. Patnubayan nawa kami ng lakas sa paninindigan
effort to consolidate various organizations, groups, and sectors, we are gathered in this blended setup to reverberate our advocacies. With recovery and sustainability as our battle cry of the Philippine Normal University, and I will be standing on behalf of our university president, Dr. Bert J. Tuga, in today's installment. Our program is divided into two parts. We are now in the opening ceremony, which we are graced by various personalities sharing our common advocacies. Later this afternoon and tomorrow, we shall continue by participating in various panel discussions, which will provide a concrete avenue for dialogue for everyone. To help us thread our conversations this afternoon, allow me to give you Professor Carl De Leomos of the Faculty of the Behavioral and Social Sciences of the Philippine Normal University as our moderator for this afternoon.
Thank you, VP Lord, and once again, a pleasant afternoon to our cohorts of advocacy. At this juncture, may we know where you are joining us right now? You may comment your current location and institution in the chat box of the live streaming device you are using on our official PNU FB page. All right, it is indeed good to know that we are alive and alert and this interesting Tuesday afternoon. To kick things off, let us listen to the welcome message of Mayor Francisco Dumagoso, City Mayor of Manila.
It would be an honor for the City of Manila to host the SDGs RESILIART Earth Saving Manila event in partnership with the ITI Social Change Network, the Earth Savers UNESCO Artists for Peace, and the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, or NCCA, with the support of the Philippine Senate committees led by SDGs, Culture, Arts, and Education, and DFA Cultural Diplomacy, or UNICOM. The City Government of Manila looks forward to being an instrument in developing and promoting active communications agenda to help accomplish and realize the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, which represent the main pillar of the UN agenda to protect the welfare of people and the planet and to promote world peace and prosperity through partnerships. Honorable Francisco Isko Dumagoso, City Mayor, City of Manila.
Of course, this event would be in vain without the fervent support of our government leaders, who also share our vision of resilient future. We shall listen to the messages of Honorable Vicente C. Soto III, Senate President, Honorable Lord Alan J. Q. Velasco, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and His Excellency, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. Let us give them a virtual round of applause.
The greatest responsibility to help lead our nation to safety and recovery, away from the disastrous effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. All around the world, every nation is fighting hard to keep themselves afloat and acted swiftly to address the various health and economic issues brought about by the pandemic. Global best practices have been shared and adopted from treatments, medical protocols, research, safety and isolation protocols, vaccination rollouts, and many other resources to save lives and stop the death count, which is 3,709,397 as of June 5, 2021. To our fellow parliamentarians around the world, our heartfelt felicitations to all the hard work and dedication that you are doing to address this crisis. Our role as the steady hand that provides the policy framework to support government's emergency efforts through the efficient passage of laws and ensuring the proper appropriation of funds to address the pandemic is a crucial task. In the Philippine Senate, we have adopted and modified our rules to give way to a hybrid form of session wherein legislators can either be physically or virtually present to ensure an unimpeded sessions despite lockdowns and isolations. At the height of the pandemic, we were able to timely pass laws that will address the urgent needs of the government. Bayanihan, as we call it, or United Efforts to Heal as One Act, and Bayanihan, United Efforts to Recover as One Act were passed. These laws aims to support the medical needs of the country, provide support for the health workers, give financial aid for displaced workers, provide economic stimulus packages to boost the economy, and other assistance to mitigate the impact of the pandemic. Also, we were able to conduct hearings in aid of legislation to ensure that an efficient and proper vaccine procurement and rollout plan is in place. This resulted in the passing of the COVID-19 Vaccination Program Act of 2021. As we continue to fight this battle, we are learning more and more from each other's best practices, and together we will be able to fulfill our mandates stronger than ever, despite the enormous demand brought about by COVID-19. We in the Philippine Senate would like to convey our thoughts and prayers to every parliamentarians globally. We pray that you are all safe and in good health, that your nation will heal and recover fully, and that all our children will be able to live and thrive in a safe and healthy world the soonest.
I wholeheartedly congratulate Director Cecil Guidote Alvarez, the Earth Savers Dream Center UNESCO Artist for Peace, and all the countries and organizations participating in this uniquely remarkable and timely event called Sustainable Development Goals Resilient Earth Saving Event 2021-2022. Our culture and traditional practices help bind us together as a nation, especially in trying times. Through the expression of our culture in the arts, we're able to educate everyone, especially the younger generation, in attaining the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations. At the same time, we continue to strive to raise awareness, to heighten social consciousness, and to encourage active participation in this worthwhile endeavor. This universal call to action is being made to protect the planet from the devastating effects of unabated industrialization, to eliminate poverty, and to ensure that by 2030, all people will enjoy peace and prosperity. We continue to support the fulfillment of these Sustainable Development Goals through strategic thinking, the use of multidisciplinary and multi-sectoral approaches, and integrating the SDGs in all aspects of legislation and activities. Congratulations, and may you have a fruitful and fulfilling RESILIART event this year. Mabuhay po kayong lahat.
My warmest greetings to the organizers and participants of the SDGs RESILIART Festival and Forum for Health, Peace, and Climate Justice. The COVID-19 pandemic has taken much from the people and the whole world. It is thus crucial for organizations and individuals like you to unite in taking the right steps so that no one will be left behind, and everyone may fully recover and flourish. I thus commend the Earth Savers Dreams Ensemble UNESCO Artist for Peace and its local and global partners for working together to make this series of events possible. Your initiatives to take a creative yet critical approach in presenting and discussing our sustainable development goals are truly noteworthy. Such efforts are helpful in turning these goals into concrete actions that truly resonate with our people. The administration is devoted to ensuring that every Filipino will have access to the resources and services they need to thrive. And it supports all endeavors that will help create a sustainable planet for future generations. Congratulations, and I wish you the best in all your endeavors. A message from President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
After listening to the encouraging words of our Filipino leaders, let us now direct our attention to our cohorts from abroad. This time, we shall listen to Mr. Fermin Edward Matoco, UNESCO Assistant Director General for Priority and External Relations Africa.
UNESCO message from Mr. Fermin Edward Matoco, Assistant Director General for Priority Africa and External Relations of UNESCO, on the occasion of the International SDGs RESILIART Earth Saving Festival, Forum and Workshops, Manila, Philippines, 2 to 10 December 2021. UNESCO is happy to support the International SDGs RESILIART Earth Savings Festival Forum and Workshops event, initially scheduled in May 2020, and which had to be postponed due to the pandemic. In this event taking place on the occasion of the UN Human Rights Week, sends a long-awaited message of hope in the midst of the very difficult moment that the world is going through. By changing our lives, this crisis has reminded us just how deeply our societies need art and culture, bringing people together, inspiring, soothing, and sharing. These are the powers of art. This event will showcase the dynamic possibilities of art mediation and cultural understanding for promoting reconciliation, unification, and rehabilitation. In close alignment with UNESCO's mission to build peace in the minds of men and women, the Earth Savers Dreams Ensemble has been a UNESCO Artist for Peace since 2003. Through its cooperative of artists, educators, and civic leaders, this unique ensemble mobilizes the talents of disadvantaged and disabled members of society, rallying peace, tolerance, and hope. This mission remains deeply relevant and urgent today. I wish you every success on this occasion. I have no doubt this will serve the promotion of greater intercultural understanding and respect, creating the spirit of dialogue upon which lasting peace is built.
At this moment, the ITI Philippine Center shall share with us their affirmation through the message of their president, former Senator Jose D. Lina.
Pleasant day to all the delegates to the resumption of this series of significant events known as SDGs RESILIART Earth Saving Manila event. It is my pleasure to greet each and every one of you as President of the International Theater Institute Philippine chapter. I hope that you will have a productive day in ensuring that the four topics that are under consideration in this gathering would be fully studied, will be fully appreciated, and concrete courses of action will be undertaken. And we all know that through arts and culture, all of this, peace and social justice, environment and climate change, healthcare reform and sustainable tourism, and cultural diplomacy, inclusive growth towards economic recovery. Through arts and culture, we can highlight all of these important concerns in our life as global citizens, as citizens of our individual countries. There is a need to solidify all our efforts through arts and culture so that meaningful reforms and changes in these various areas of concern can be achieved with the help of arts and culture. I wish everyone a successful gathering. As always, welcome to the Manila Hotel and the various places that have been designated as venues for these events. Maraming salamat, as we say in Philippine dialect. Mabuhay po kayo, and God bless you.
Thank you, President Lina. Now, as we transition to our panel discussions, this afternoon, let us all listen to Madam Cecil Guidote Alvarez, President of the ITI Social Change Network and Director of the Earth Savers Dream Ensemble and UNESCO Artist for Peace, as she provides a historical brief on our event.
We dreamed of a national theater movement that was actualized with the founding of the Philippine Educational Theater Association, PETA, 55 years ago, so that the arts can be dynamically applied to forge our national identity, to serve as a memory bank, as an armor against social ills, as an anchor to the wealth of our cultural traditions, a conscience, as well as an energizer for creative industries, and more important, as a vision in order to fulfill a healthy, peaceful, sustainable future. Likewise, we involve broadcast theater to reach out to the masses, and we wanted to link our culture to the dynamism of other cultures in different regions within the Asia Pacific, linked to Arab Africa, Caribbean, Latin America, North America, Europe, so that we can all become global citizens, caring for our kinship and our common goal to better the condition of mankind and care for our common home, planet Earth. In fighting for human rights, freedom, and democracy, we had to go in exile. And we are grateful that through the International Theatre Institute, they accepted a Philippine Theatre Center in exile hosted at La Mama Theatre in New York through Ellen Stewart. We linked up with the United Nations in its development concerns, integrating the value of the cultural dimension, and more than anything else, returning to a restored democracy through the Earth Savers, founded by the late Senator Herzan Alvarez. We worked devotedly to utilize all aspects of the arts, all disciplines merged with technology to diffuse the ecological time bomb of global warming and mitigate climate change catastrophes. And we are glad that, honored by UNESCO as Artists for Peace, we were able to present to the Goodwill Ambassador at UNESCO the vision of a global movement for peace and climate justice linked to sustainable development goals, not by force of arms and missiles, but through the power of arts and media. And so, since 2018, we held a gathering of artists through cultural dialogue to mitigate the conflicted area in the West Philippine Sea or the South China Sea as well. And so, with the Manila Declaration that was endorsed in Cartagena through the initiative of the South-South Cooperation Council, led by Attorney Victor Siebeck, and then on to the Conference of the Parties in Poland, endorsed by the Arts Planet, led by Stefan Pofari, and all of our other partners, Climate Institute, Supreme Master Ching Hai, all other departments like DepEd, Tourism, and of course in liaison with the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. We are now with the City of Manila as host under the leadership of Mayor Isko Moreno and provided with funds by the Senate through the initiative of Senate President Vicente Soto, as well as converged upon with the support of Congress through Speaker Alan Velasco, endorsed as well or welcomed by the Office of the President, Rodrigo Roa Duterte. We now have this public forum hosted by our lead academic institution partner, Philippine Normal University, under the leadership of President Bert Tuga. And we thank all of our participants worldwide as well as our cultural animateurs within our country for this gathering that will conclude with an international arts festival, April 3 to 5. But now, March 22 to 23, we are observing World Theatre Week celebration all over the world through the auspices of the International Theatre Institute. We are especially grateful to UNESCO for its patronage, for its encouraging support from the time of Director General Federico Mayor, who gave us the assistance to attend the Habitat Forum, as well as Director General Koichiro Matsuura, who provided us the honor, the Earth Savers Dreams Ensemble and its Academy, as a UNESCO Artist for Peace, and for Director General Irina Bokova for coming to the Philippines to inaugurate and provide assistance in giving attention to the effort of our dream strategy, development, rehabilitation, education through arts, media, science, and sports. And of course, to Director General Audrey Azoulay, who has given this incredible support for the Philippines to host this international SDGs RESILIART earth-saving series of events that was not stopped or restricted by COVID, which provides witness to the resilience, determination, and commitment of artists throughout the world.
Thank you, Madam Cecil, for giving us the purpose and the full content or the intent of our conference today. At this juncture, let us listen to Peter Seller's message for World Theatre Day, introduced by ITI Director General Tobias Biancone and articulated by Madam Cecil Guidote Alvarez.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, distinguished Cecil Guidote Alvarez and Victor Sebek, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today at the Manila Sustainable Development Goals RESILIART event, which is focusing on health, well-being, peace, and climate. The United Nations, UNESCO, and the International Theatre Institute, ITI, all of them strive to make this world a better place. They intend to give us guidance, motivation, and inspiration so that individuals and groups are creating in their sphere of influence an appropriate environment for life and livingness. And while it is of utmost importance that the UN, UNESCO, and ITI are promoting means for a better world on a global scale, it is as well of utmost significance that the message reaches individuals of all walks of life. In order to succeed in this noble cause, we need to pay attention on one human characteristic. And this characteristic is called respect. We only are able to make this world a better place to live in if we lead people to respect nature, respect someone else independent of the other person's culture, ethnicity, religious belief, and socio-economic situation. Moreover, we only will succeed if we reach the individual, so the individual himself or herself is becoming an excellent example of someone who cares for the respect for nature and people. In doing this, we will have built a strong campaign that will include everybody on a local and global scale. We are creating more and more heroes that are doing something essential in their sphere of influence and thus for this world. With these words, I would like to honor all those who make this event possible. A special honor goes to the late Gerson Sonny Alvarez, one of my Filipino heroes who relentlessly worked to make the Philippines a better place to live in, a green and just country for everybody. I hope that this event will bring about a joint initiative of artists, politicians, opinion leaders, and any individual who want to create a future in which it is worth living in, a world in which our children and the children of our children can enjoy life, a world that includes everybody and gives equal chance to everybody. On behalf of the International Theatre Institute ITI, and on my behalf, I'm sending you my very best wishes for an inspiring and successful event, an event that leads to action for the benefit of all of us.
We'd like to let you know that the 2022 World Theatre Day message is being given by the outstanding theater, opera, and festival director, Peter Sellers of the United States of America. And his message has been translated into Filipino by our colleague in the ITI, Professor Jolad Santos, who is chair of our Philippine ITI Publications and Communications Committee. And we are going to share some of his inspiring thoughts in his message. Here are some excerpts. We are not living in the 24-hour news cycle. We are living at the edge of time. Newspapers and media are completely unequipped and unable to deal with what we are experiencing. Where is the language? What are the moves? And what are the images that might allow us to comprehend the deep shifts and ruptures that we are experiencing? And how can we convey the content of our lives right now? Not as reportage, but experience. Theater is the art form of experience. Theater is the creation on earth of the space of equality between humans, gods, plants, animals, raindrops, tears, and regeneration. The space of equality and deep listening is illuminated by hidden beauty, kept alive in a deep interaction of danger, spontaneity, equanimity, wisdom, action, and patience. This is a time for deep refreshment of our minds, of our senses, of our imagination, of our histories, and of our future. This work cannot be done by isolated people working alone. This is work that we need to do together. Theater is the invitation to do this work together. We have to be together. Mabuhay.
We know John to be for conversations in our plenary sessions. A piece of music video created by the Earth Savers Dreams Ensemble, honored by UNESCO as Artists for Peace, focus on the insanity of war. Composition by Ferdy Di Madura, sung by the Earth Savers Blind Choral, directed by Cecil Guidote Alvarez, commissioned by Senator Gerson Alvarez for participation in the Conference for Human Rights.
She said, the soldiers came. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my song and vow to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me.
As meaningfully delivered by the short video, our first session is on peace and social justice. This session will be moderated by Dr. Aldwin Sanchez, former Senior Vice President and Dean of the Development Academy of the Philippines.
Thank you, Carl. Allow me to give you an overview of this day one. This particular international forum is anchored on cultural arts diplomacy. That culture and arts is the tool towards attaining peace. That talents, skills, arts have no boundaries. And their particular culture of arts of every nation inculcate the relationship of man from every man. Further, 26 days ago, we witnessed a major problem, that is war, that Russia invaded Ukraine. And because of that, diplomacy failed. But we are here to spur hope in Southeast Asia, as spearheaded by Senate and NCAA through the effort of UNESCO, that there is hope and we're going to have this peace through culture and arts. And we are privileged to listen to the different messages coming from different ambassadors from different countries, from Europe, Africa, and Latin America. And of course, we'll be presented also from the Philippines by our two rapporteurs. For the first speaker, we have Honorable Shirley Ayorkor Bushway, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration of Ghana. For the second speaker is Her Excellency Maria Ubak Font, Minister Foreign Affairs of Andorra. And the third speaker is Miss Hedva Sir, UNESCO Ambassador of Goodwill of France. Let us now try to watch the video of the first three speakers.
Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, distinguished participants, it is with great pleasure that I join you virtually for this important event on the nexus between culture and peace in Africa, a critical precondition for enhancing the well-being of our people and for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. I wish to acknowledge the chairman of the South-South Cooperation Council, SSCC, the Philippine Senate and other partners, especially UNESCO, for putting together this program that has drawn the participation of eminent personalities of diverse professional backgrounds. It is gratifying that my compatriot and chair of the SSCC Office for Africa, Mr. Ladi Nylander, will also be sharing some perspectives on the linkage between culture and peace. Distinguished participants, despite Africa's immense wealth and resources, including a youthful population, continental efforts to transform the lives of Africans continue to be challenged by unfair international trading policies, illicit financial flows, proliferation of arms, conflicts, terrorism, piracy, trafficking of persons, and lately the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic especially has exposed certain underlying structural inequalities on the African continent. Challenges in the health sector and socioeconomic responses have put a spotlight on the inequalities and barriers in the distribution of vital public services and the marginalization of vulnerable groups. The increasing demands across the continent for good governance and better management of Africa's resources and the continuing impact of the pandemic convey an urgency for quick and effective solutions, even as extremists and terrorists defeated elsewhere seek to exploit vulnerable segments in the part of the continent. As we recover from the damaging impact of COVID-19, we have the opportunity as a continent to rebuild economies that are resilient and not depend on foreign aid. This requires robust planning, more resilient financial systems and management, and strengthened multilateral cooperation, including a reformed global public health system. African governments have spent scarce resources fighting the COVID pandemic and providing social protections to millions of affected households. The need for innovative financing to address structural challenges beyond responding to immediate fiscal needs is imperative. We call for mechanisms to facilitate investments in health infrastructure, technology, the environment, and people that would bolster resilience and equitable recovery. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Ghana has since 2017 adopted policies and programs to ensure that the SDGs do not remain an illusion. Besides the alignment of the SDGs with Ghana's development agenda and annual budgets, active collaboration among all ministries, departments, and agencies, the private sector, and civil society has led to high rates of growth and great progress towards achievement of the goals before the onset of COVID-19. The government of Ghana is also committed to the work of the United Nations in norm setting, capacity building, and advocacy for human rights and respect for international law. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is actively engaged in international facilitators' work as co-chair of the SDGs advocates. In addition, the President also plays an active role within the African Union and ECOWAS to address the many issues bedeviling the continent. Indeed, on matters of security in West Africa, the Accra Initiative, the brainchild of the President of Ghana, that has virtually become an ECOWAS initiative, is facilitating intelligence sharing and enhanced cooperation among the signatories in the sub-region. Within the wider Sahel region, from where terrorism and free flow of arms are threatening peace and security in West Africa and beyond, Ghana is at the forefront of regional and continental initiatives to contain the situation. Under the leadership of His Excellency the President, ECOWAS is collaborating with the United Nations and other development partners to address the security concerns originating from the Sahel. Mr. Chair, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, peace and security and development cannot be achieved without democracy. Ghana is committed to democracy and the rule of law, and we are an ardent champion of these values in international engagements, particularly at the regional and continental levels. We are convinced that arts, culture, and heritage are central to the promotion of peace and security. The quest for peace must reflect the cultural context of people and the values of the United Nations, our larger contemporary cultural framework. Any sustainable endeavor in the pursuit of peace in Africa or anywhere in the world must accordingly take due cognizance of the way of life, the language, religion, and culture of the people and parties that are involved. Understanding a community's art and culture is key to understanding their needs and aspirations and the consequent definition of effective problem-solving strategies. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the government and people of Ghana recognize the benefits that can be derived from arts and culture, and we have paid special attention to the developments in that sector. Notable events recently spearheaded by government include the Year of Return in 2019. This landmark event drew the participation of members of the global African family, home and abroad, to mark 400 years of the arrival of the first enslaved Africans in Jamestown, Virginia. While celebrating the cumulative resilience of all the victims of the transatlantic slave trade, the event created an avenue for Africans and Afro-descendants in the diaspora to contribute to Ghana's development paradigm. The Beyond the Return initiative was marked thereafter to consolidate the achievements of the Year of Return. Against this background, the government of Ghana stands ready to join collaborations in the field of arts and culture to advance global efforts to improve the lives of people and safeguard our environment. Thank you, and I wish you all successful deliberations.
First of all, I would like to thank both Mrs. Edvaser, UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador for Cultural Diplomacy, and Mrs. Cecile Guidote Alvarez, UNESCO Honorary and Goodwill Ambassador for making this outcome in the Philippines possible. Indeed, Andorra is proud to have launched in 2008 the first ARCAM Andorra. We created, together with the Andorran National Commission for UNESCO and some faithful partners, an international gathering of artists who meet to paint together, to share cultural experiences, and who demonstrate that international dialogue is possible and fruitful. Our aim has been to invite artists from all around the world, and in particular from regions in conflict, so that the artists could create synergies and collaborations that hopefully they would be willing to continue once back home. Andorra has already organized 7 editions of ARCAM, and in 2015, a Mediterranean version of ARCAM was launched in Malta. Our restless godmother of the ARCAM Andorra, Mrs. Edvaser, has worked to make this initiative known around the world, like today in the Philippines. I do hope that this ARCAM will be fruitful, and the experiences to be shared will foster the intercultural dialogue and the mutual understanding, as those are the spirit of our compromise for peace. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Hedveser. I'm UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador for Cultural Diplomacy. I'm sculptor, artist, and today I'm talking to you about Art Camp, the colors of the planet. Thank you so much, Victor and the SSCC, of organizing Art Camp in the Asian country, in Philippines. It's amazing to have the first one in this continent. I'm so happy that you are doing it. And thank you so much, Cecile, with your big efforts and putting on together all the workshop and putting also this wonderful, amazing conference about cultural diplomacy and in a forum for the CDD, which is something which really unique now in Manila. Sorry, I cannot be with you all, but I hope that my video will replace me, and I would like to talk to you about Art Camp. What is about? Art Camp is a program which was beginning in 2009, and since 2012, I was asked by the Commission of UNESCO to Andorra to join as a godmother. We are bringing artists, especially from countries in conflict. These artists are working together, respecting each other, and the most important thing, are building bridges for peace, for the future. It's an amazing program because the artists, they like each other so much after the 10 days of working together. They are building a real connection. And during the during the time that they are at outcome in the place, they are also doing programs about the region, about the country, about the food, about all which is the heritage of the country, and everybody's learning more about the area from where they came, from their coming. For instance, in Andorra, it's internationally. So in Andorra, we have really every 2 years artists coming from all over the world. You can see artists from Tibet, from Syria. You can see them working together from Palestinian, Israeli, Armenian, and Azerbaijan. And these people are all working and happy to be together. This is the most important thing. Art unites them, and the paintings, it's all about painting, and the paintings unite them. This program is working so well that we decided also with the government of Malta to build it all for the Mediterranean country, which is every 2 years as well in Malta, in Gozo. We just talked to the ambassador of Malta, who was here in Paris, and we are continuing this program. In Gozo, the artists were all around in this beautiful, around the citadel, in this beautiful, amazing place. And they were working together, even outside, working together. And you could see all the Mediterranean country all around in Malta. This program is going on to all the continents now. So we are very happy to announce the first one in Manila, in Philippines, as I said before, and it is going to be for all the countries of from the countries of the Asian countries. The next step after Manila, the next step is going to be to United Arab Emirates, which is going to be in March 2022. It means all the Muslim countries around the world, and in the University of Ajman. I can announce it now. And afterwards, we'll do it in some other continents, in Africa. I hope with Victor in Ghana. Victor is helping me so much, to make it going, make it working all over the world. And Victor made me introduce me to the Ghana, people from Ghana, and I hope to make it there. And this is really something which is a part of the cultural diplomacy, because we, during Outcap now in Andorra, the government, we decided with the government of Andorra and University of Andorra, and Victor was also participating. We had the first time a conference about cultural diplomacy. It means that Outcome is a very active element in the cultural diplomacy. It's helping also some president of government, showing that artists today, art camp and cultural diplomacy, it's all about soft diplomacy, and it is something new, and it's something that we have to utilize. They have to take into consideration, the governments, and they have to make it working, because this is something which is a parallel for diplomacy, and it can help a lot diplomacy all over the world. Thank you so much, Cecile and Victor, for organizing this unique art camp, the first one, which will be of Southeast Asia. It's really something that we will begin, and I hope we'll continue it in the future. It's the first time. Unfortunately, I can't be here, but I will do everything as though I'm there with Jean-Michel Armengol from the Commission of UNESCO Andorra, but hope we will continue it in another next time in 2 years in the future. Thank you again for both of you, and I wish you a wonderful success for this conference. Thank you.
Secretary General of European Cultural Parliament, then Honorable Ella Gandhi, granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi, Trustee Gandhi Development Trust, Co-President of Religion for Peace, Hindu South Africa, and a joint statement by Mr. Nikolai Burgazer, Program Director, Center for Contemporary Politics, and Mr. Astrid Estrafi. Let us now try to watch the video of Ambassador Carl Eric Norman.
Hello, dear friends. I am Carl Eric Norman. I am a former Swedish ambassador and co-founder and Secretary General of the European Cultural Parliament, the only existing pan-European forum and network for artists all over Europe. We have had almost 20 sessions so far all over the continent, and we are about 160 members from 43 countries. Our mission is to say that culture is the core of society. We want to give globalization a human dimension. Our values, of course, are the basic European values: democracy, human rights, peace promotion, gender equality, freedom of expression, freedom of religion on a secular basis. ECP members from all walks of arts are now ready to reach out in the world, and particularly to Africa. We are ready to contribute that particularly women and girls are empowered through culture. And we wish to contribute to culture and peace building in Africa, particularly in Sahel, in Kenya and Mozambique. We are working with SSCC on a project in this direction. I wish you all the best.
I am very pleased to virtually address this important meeting spirited by the Senate of the Philippines, and also very proud that the concept of the SDGs was adopted by the United Nations as a chief pillar of the purpose of my country, Colombia. I have a great deal of admiration for what the main organizer, Madame Cecile Guidot Alvarez, has done at the global stage for peace, democracy, and the role of culture in popularizing and actualizing sustainable development goals. And also, I am very glad to note that it is a Colombian, my friend Victor Shebeck, who has helped bringing this important event to fruition as the Associate Director of the SSCC. The Philippines is a very important country to us because it's the only Asian one with the Hispanic roots. It is for this reason that the process is underway to arrange training between our jewel city of Cartagena de India with Manila. However, as the ambassador of Colombia to the West African region, 18 countries speaking English, speaking French and Portuguese, my priority is to strengthen the links between African countries and Colombia, which has a large population of African origin that has left a significant imprint in our history, our culture, and customs. To this end, I was pleased to have been able to help the production of a fantastic docu-fiction called Ulysses from Ghana, which was produced in August and September this year by the South Cooperation Council, together with the Colombian Center for the International Theater Institute, and with the support in Ghana of the Colombian Embassy, to promote awareness that the transatlantic slave trade is not only a fact of history, but that it is in existence in various forms even today, including racial discrimination. I noted that UNESCO, under whose patronage this event is being held, as Africa as its absolute priority, and I expect that an important part of the Manila Platform of Action will deal with the need to use culture as a vehicle for peace. Once these elements are translated into a project together with colleagues from African countries, European Cultural Parliament, and members of the European Parliament, I shall be happy to organize a meeting in Accra of African and European ambassadors in support of such a project which Africa continually forgoes in internal conflicts badly needs. We know that. Lastly, my government and the Embassy of Colombia in Ghana, in particular, worked hard in promoting bilateral links between the anticipated twinning arrangements between Accra and Cartagena de Indias, our jewel, our Caribbean jewel. Thank you so much and congratulations for this opportunity.
Okay, so I think the Sustainable Development Goals of peace and nonviolence are very, very important, especially if we are to build unity amongst the South countries, and if we are to strengthen our country. We need peace and we need nonviolence in order to become stronger and unified. And therefore, peace and nonviolence are very, very important goals. And in talking about peace and nonviolence, there are three very important issues. One is of equity, the second is of clean and democratic governance, and the third is an effort to build up in a way that our environment is protected, so that we don't go on the same route that the West has gone into, where they have degraded the environment to such an extent that today the whole world is suffering because of what happened, because of the environmental degradation caused particularly by the West and by rapid industrialization, mining of products, and that sort of thing. So those are some of the issues that we need to take into account going forward. So again, each one of these issues has been referred to by Gandhian ideas, and Gandhian ideas have been mainly to observe or to ensure that communities grow up with compassion, respect, understanding, closer to nature, conserving nature, and building communities. And these are values that we need to promote within our communities. These values are contained in many of the symbols or little proverbs or little words that we use. For instance, in South Africa, there's a word called Ubuntu. And Ubuntu means I am because you are. And it talks about that interconnectedness. So if we promote these values and this interconnectedness in our society, we will develop a better, a more compassionate, a respectful and a loving society with nature, environment, and people will be taken care of, and we will not have the problems that the modern world is encountering. in respect of violence, in respect of environmental degradation, and in respect of materialism, which leads to corruption. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Putin's invasion of Ukraine is a defining moment in history. Today, the global developments are a serious threat to peace, freedom, and democracy around the world. Post-conflict regions, such as the Western Balkans, are especially vulnerable from the effects of these global disturbances. Finding itself on the road towards EU membership, the Western Balkans is particularly important as it is both very vulnerable and highly important for European security. Therefore, this situation calls for a prompt response from the governments of Serbia and Kosovo and the international community to uphold respect for peaceful resolution of disputes, the rule of law, solidarity, and human rights in the Western Balkans. It reiterates the importance of dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia for securing sustainable peace, prosperity, and the well-being of all citizens. It recommends that the civil society in Serbia and Kosovo continue with their efforts to promote peace, tolerance, stability, and reconciliation between Serbia and Kosovo, between Serbs and Albanians, and in the Western Balkans region by continuing with cooperation and dialogue with a view to broaden the environment for civil society actors to have transformative impact on their societies and on relations between both Serbs and Albanians, and between Kosovo and Serbia. Assuming a leadership position in which civil society works together on principles of common values and a common interest to provide a sustained foundation for collective action to deal with problems of the past and create a peaceful future. Leading by example, through shunning inflammatory rhetoric and hate speech in Kosovo and Serbia, and working collaboratively and with goodwill to move past existing political divisions and build relations between people from different communities, fighting intolerance, discrimination, and ethnic hatred, and working to prevent ethnic-based conflict and violence against individuals or communities. A joint message from Nicola Bruazer, Executive Director, Center for Contemporary Politics, Astrid Strefi, Executive Director, the Balkan Forum.
So for the local, we will be represented by Commissioner Yusef Mundo of National Commission of Muslim Filipinos and Mr. Miss Jamila Ramos, Member of the Parliament, Bangsamoro Parliament.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. May the meaning of peace be upon us all. For more 5 decades, the Bangsamoro people have been struggling for justice and meaningful and genuine peace. Such struggle is rooted in our centuries-old question regarding our right to self-determination. Our battles in the fields of our homeland, on the peace tables, in the streets of the urban jungles of Metro Manila, in the lobbies and session halls of the Philippine Congress, they were all fervently hard-fought. Our struggle is not a rebellion against the Philippine government or any sitting administration. Our struggle is a legitimate one that is principled, well-intentioned, and collectively shared by the Bangsamoro people. It is a legitimate struggle that is recognized by the international community. It is a legitimate struggle with the end in mind of revolutionizing or changing the system of governance in our region and improve the overall condition of our people into one that is aligned with our unique culture, identity, history, and way of life. Thus, despite the seemingly insurmountable challenges and procedural deadlocks that we have been through, we never gave up. We rose above our situation and persevered, and alhamdulillah, all thanks and praises to the Almighty, peace has won. Peace has won, and we are now transitioning into a region where justice and our self-determination are being institutionalized. We are now transitioning into a region that is more secure, orderly, inclusive, and progressive. With the signing of the Comprehensive Agreement on the Bangsamoro, the enactment of the Bangsamoro Organic Law, and the establishment of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, we are gearing towards the strengthening of our institutions that will adopt policies, plans, and programs to protect human rights, promote social justice, maintain the rule of law, advance the general welfare of all our constituents, and ensure that we can catch up with the development and improvement of the rest of the country. We are gearing towards the creation of an enabling environment conducive for inclusive and sustainable peace and development, thus creating more business and job opportunities and encouraging more investments and development assistance to come in the Bangsamoro. We are gearing towards the realization of the long-held vision of a revolution of establishing a Bangsamoro that is united, enlightened, self-governing, peaceful, just, morally upright, and progressive. The struggle of the Bangsamoro people is a continuing and evolving one. Thus, we will uphold our revolution until we achieve our collective aspiration and vision, and we will keep sharing our narratives of peace and quest for social justice so that all stakeholders from the chambers of global summits, conferences, and fora like this one, to the executive desk and legislative halls of the government, down to our localities and grassroots communities, we can all cultivate the same understanding, come to a common agreement, and move into the same direction of putting prime importance on the rights and general welfare of all. I genuinely hope and pray for peace and social justice to prevail. To the organizers and participants of the SDGs, RESILIART Festival and Forum for Health, Peace, and Climate Justice, thank you very much. Wabillahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, thank you. We'll have the interactive commentators. For this particular portion, every commentator will have 5 minutes. There will be a green light for the first 3 minutes, then yellow or blue, yellow light for the 4 minutes, and red light for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And once you see the red light, it means you have 30 seconds to wrap up your speech, your piece. Then you have 5 minutes. Then afterwards, we have the next speaker. So we have 4 interactive commentators, and we will start first with the international. Let me introduce our international speakers, commentators. Mr. Lady Nylander for Peace and Security, Vice Chair of Pan-African Heritage World Museum, Chair, SSC for African Region, Ghana, and Ms. Cecile Won for Peace, Director, Office of International Affairs, Seoul Institute of the Arts, Seoul, South Korea. So may I request the international commentators.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, Akwaba. Akwaba in our language means welcome. I want to say special thanks to Madame Cecile Alvarez and Victor Shebek. My name is Lady Nylander. Let me share with you some random thoughts about peace and security. Now, if we are to accept that peace is not merely the absence of war, but the presence of justice, law, and order, in short, government, then why may we ask the need to mention security? Now, peace may have different definitions, but in a nutshell, if peace means not only the absence of war, then we must necessarily see it within the larger perspective of globalization. Now, what about the practice of some cultural norms, for instance, child marriages, which with increasing globalization we have adjudged to be inimical to the interests or the human rights of people who see it as normal, and yet the world at large may see it as probably impinging on the rights of the individual. Africa is a large continent, 1.3 billion people, and the artificial borders that were created as a result of the Berlin Conference in 1897 or so and so forth, just demarcated us into all kinds of people who were the same, but on different sides of the border. And then the end of the Cold War ushered in a period of, let's say, the freedom of expression, which brought about African states achieving or trying to achieve independence. And then the ensuing conflicts readily spilled over porous borders to become threats to regional peace and stability. The DRC and the Great Lakes conflicts, the Liberian War, which spread to Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, and the conflicts in the Horn of Africa, they come to mind. Interestingly, the Maasai nation, with its very unique culture, also straddles Kenya and Tanzania, whilst blood brothers engage in government policy between Kenya and Uganda. The story is not much different in West Africa. Ghana, Togo, and Benin each have different colonial experiences. So Ghana, for instance, is encircled by French-speaking states. Now, that does not augur well for security, especially when the colonial powers very often are behind these things. I can remember in my lifetime in the late 50s when the French wanted to test their atomic bombs in the Sahara. And I know that a delegation from Ghana, for instance, wanted to go to the Sahara, but they were stopped at the border in what used to be the Upper Volta, now Burkina. The interesting thing is that the people who were stopping the Ghanaian delegation were the same tribe, they were the same people, but on the other side, but because they belonged to different colonial powers, had different interests. And that, of course, brought about a lot of conflict and misunderstandings and so on and so forth. Now, latterly, the movement of people, migration and immigration has also brought people with different cultures. But the point of the matter is that if they understand each other through cultural diplomacy and doing things that are of relation to each other, then we can begin to minimize these conflicts, and hence the cultural diplomacy is so important. Incidentally, there is also a good side, because I can remember that within East and Central Africa, the conflicts that displaced people to West Africa led to enjoyment by West Africans of the alternative music culture, which was actually positive. Now, for most of Africa, I believe our unity lies in our diversity. And as we move to resolve the age-old conflicts, we can do a lot in terms of using culture to make sure that we are aligned. The African continent is not without a number of challenges, but the point is that the Africa's population of under 35-year-olds represents almost 1 billion people, amounting to 22.7% of the world's total population, youth population. 60% of the entire continents of the world are aged below 25. As of 2021, around 40% of the population is aged 15 years and younger, compared to a global average of 26%. In Ghana, for example, approximately 57% of the population is under the age of 25. The rate of urbanization, the influx of young people from rural into towns and cities, has been unprecedented in human history. Several countries like Ghana have seen their populations go from being predominantly rural to predominantly urban in just a single generation. So you can imagine the amount of security that is needed to maintain peace with such an explosion. The official employment rate among African youth that is between 15 and 34 years was 46.3% in Q1 of 2021. Joblessness is the biggest threat to peace and security. Therefore, providing quality skills for these young people as a means to maintain peace and to begin the process of African economic empowerment must be uppermost in our minds. Ultimately, the wealth of the continent will depend on empowering the youth to create quality jobs. Now, what are we doing about it in SSCC Africa? I think Ambassador Carl Eric mentioned that we're about to pursue an initiative, the culture of peace and security in Africa, the quest for stewardship and cooperative engagement. That is to strengthen regional cooperative effort through facilitating dialogue and exchange of policies, practice and initiatives. The purpose is to enhance peace efforts through exploration and creation. This is in order to achieve a culture for peace, leveraging on the commonalities within the South-South. In Ghana, we're doing, I am, as said, Vice Chair of the Pan-African Heritage Museum. And what is it aimed at? To make sure that we understand and learn and relearn, because Africa is not 400 years old. Yes, the 400 years old is the African American experience, but if we think back that the pyramids were built nearly 5,000 years ago, and that things being found in archaeological excavations in the pyramids now are symbols that are currently used, we do know that Africa has a long history that needs to be learned. I think also Ambassador Tobai talked about the Ulysses in Ghana, which a film that SSCC has put together that aligns with the Black Lives Matter movement, promotes understanding, and make sure that everything that we're doing now is towards understanding of each other and making sure that security is at the epitome of peace.
Thank you, Mr. Nylander. We will, you already have the 7 minutes actually of your talk. May we perhaps, we have skipped another speaker with the person of Commissioner Yusuf Mando of National Commission of Muslim Filipinos. Then we will go back to Ms. Cecile Kwon. So Mr. Commissioner Yusuf Mando, the floor is yours.
UNESCO statistics state about 500 million indigenous people provide the face of cultural diversity with about 7,000 languages spoken, but they continue to be marginalized with human rights violations. Extreme poverty. This is why it is fortunate that the UN concerns for non-violence and habitat protection and education for all, as we salute teachers. In applying culture and arts in promoting social cohesion and harmony, we are glad this administration has been able to purge the Bangsamoro Organic Law or BOL that created the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARM. The road to peace is indeed difficult, but we are striving to build solidarity and kinship. The armed conflict and climate change catastrophes deepens poverty, loss of homes and livelihood. The rehabilitation of afflicted areas should be further hastened. In particular, during this time of pandemic, we welcome the United Nations call for a ceasefire so we can all live in peace and promote its agenda of fulfilling the Sustainable Development Goals. We congratulate the selected paintings of the youth to express their interest and appreciation of indigenous heritage.
Now we will now go back to our commentator, Ms. Cecile Say Won.
Hello, my name is Cecily from Korea, and I am the International Director of Seoul Institute of the Arts. I don't have any professional or expert knowledge in the area of RESILIART and of peace and war, but I'm from a country that is still divided, and it's the only country in the world where the same culture, where people that use the same language and have the same culture and used to be one culture are now divided. And as you know, Korean War was from 1951 to 1950 to 1953, and during that time, many people from all over the world came to help Korea, and Korean people were, including many of my relatives and uncles and grandparents, died in that war. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because many people talk about Korea and Korea's economic development and how it is a miracle. But actually, many Koreans are in extreme stress because of the communist regime in the north that would like to invade the south anytime that they can. And as you know, they are developing nuclear bombs every day. And just a few days ago, they also developed, they shot one. And so, we are kind of living in a very, in the edge, you might say. And so all of Koreans are thinking, unless we work our ass off, the North is going to invade us anytime. We're constantly living under this threat. Unless we develop our economy, we will be invaded. Unless we strengthen our army, our country might be lost. Unless we develop whatever we have and do whatever we can, we are, we could be pushed off the edge. So this is something, and there's a word in Korean called han, and there's it's a kind of a very deep anguish, and it's a word that doesn't exist in another language, and it's a kind of very deep anger and worry that affect your whole life. And so I'm not a generation that experienced the war, but my parents did and my grandparents did. And in fact, my grandmother died in the war. My grandfather was crippled in the war. And so it affects my father's generation, and it affects my generation as well, because we grow up hearing about it. And so actually there is no answer to this problem that we can, whether, I don't know if we can solve it or not ever, but I feel like, you know, this talk about global peace should be done globally with the countries that are the invaders, countries that are attacking other countries. And I really wish that something, I mean, I think I get very emotional when we talk about something like this, because it's not something that is often talked about. And it really affects many generations and many people, and the scar is so deep. So, you know, you're right to have this forum to talk about it, and to spread it to many people. And I really want to applaud your efforts in this area. I don't think we can underestimate the deep scars and wounds that the generations that experience the war and the generations that come after it too, you know, how they are influenced.
Cecil, thank you for sharing your particular experience of your country. And all of us here also in the Philippines, as what pointed out by Commissioner Yusuf Mando, as well as the member of the parliament. It has been 5 decades. The Philippines is also in conflict there in the south. And apparently, they have just created this Bangsamoro organic law. And hopefully that peace could be achieved here also in the Philippines. Of course, in your country, it has been an ongoing war. It's not yet been, there is no treaty yet between South and North Korea. And anytime it could erupt. And I could really, if I was there, anytime war could erupt. And that's the ugly face of war. Families are separated, people are dying, and until now the scars are there. Much more has been told by Mr. Lady Rylander in Africa. During his time in the 1950s, of course, the West, the Europeans tried to exploit and make use, even using their natural resources aside, for testing the atomic bomb. And that's not fair. And that is what we call, there is what we call peace and justice. Because tantamount to peace, there should be giving what is due. And everybody have their rights. The word justice comes from the Latin word jus. Everybody have their own respective rights, and that is inherent in each one of us, and it has to be respected. Now, for the locals, we do have another two that would give their commentator. We do have Ms. Malu Jacob, the multi-award winning playwright, former Secretary General of ITI Philippine Chap Center, and Dr. Herbert Glenn Reyes, President, Northwestern Mindanao State College of Science and Technology, Taguig City, Misamis Occidental. Ms. Malub Jacob, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for making me part of this forum and for asking me to react to the speakers. Um, it's very interesting to know from what the speakers shared that our belief that culture is not just an after dinner event. We look at culture as the center, and this was affirmed by the concept of clash of civilizations, wherein Huntington mentioned that at the center of the conflict is culture. So we have to rethink our role as artists and as cultural workers if we believe that culture is at the center of the clash of civilizations. In fact, we can tell Huntington that we artists and cultural workers can in fact turn it from a clash of civilization to a harmony of civilizations, if only we can work together. In the Philippines, because of our colonial past, there is a very big gap among our Muslim population, the Catholic population, and the indigenous. And we artists should start trying to close that gap. One of the things that we're doing now is through theater. I would like to mention a play that we are now doing, Batang Mujahideen, which is about a child warrior, which has been done by Radio Balintatao, so that it's all over the country, it has been heard. And it is our attempt to close this discrimination, this culture of discrimination that is prevailing in our hearts and minds. But we also hope to extend it ASEAN-wide. We're known in ASEAN as very multicultural. Unfortunately, what has happened in Myanmar or Burma, which has recently been declared as genocide, brought about our Muslim community in Myanmar as far as Bangladesh. ASEAN 10 is majority Muslim. We Christians are a minority. We hope that we can concretize what Mr. Tobias mentioned earlier, which is the promotion of respect. If we continue to respect each other's religion, each other's beliefs, each other's dreams, then we can continue to unify the ASEAN 10. And perhaps the Philippines could, if it is not already, bringing together like-minded and like-hearted artists to really work on workshops for victims of natural catastrophe like COVID or in matters of war. We can continue this and maybe make it ASEAN-wide so that it can affect the almost 700 million population. Can you imagine if Christians or Catholics go to the Buddhist community, the Buddhist artists go to the Muslim community, and the Muslim artists also go to the Buddhist and to the Catholic communities. This, I think, is within the range and can be done by our artists and will make us really show that art and culture may not only be the center of conflict, but the future harmony in our area. Then may I, 2 months ago, only 2 months ago, I was watching the BBC, and there was this Black woman poet who said that the next ideology would be feminism. I said, why? And then she explained and she said that because feminism is a matter of equality and justice. So that made me start reading about feminism, which made me discover what novelist Alice Walker mentioned. She said, from feminism, it should be womanism. That is beyond gender. So that matters, racism could be tackled, class also could be tackled. Well, she also said that it is a matter of ideology. Recently, what has been happening in Europe made me think about ideology. It seems that capitalism and Marxism are one and the same. Their leaders commit the same abuses. Yes, what if the future would go towards feminism or womanism? I would like to share all those with you in your committee. Thank you.
It is my privilege to become the commentator for the different talks this afternoon. As expressed by our resource speakers, the common issue is culture and the arts as the core of the development of peace in the world. Social justice must be the offshoot of this awareness in the culture and the arts. All these are to be incorporated in the different sustainable development goals that we are pursuing. In the field of education, the perspective of peace advocacies has to be incorporated in the various curriculum with the insertion of the different SDGs with the culture and the arts as the core of these advocacies. Now, more than ever, peace must be the agenda to be achieved. Our resource speakers have expressed that the following have to be observed and adopted: respect, understanding, the rule of law, preservation of communities, promotion of the culture and the arts, collaboration, dialogue, communication, preservation of identity, freedom of expression, religion. Since culture and the arts, as mentioned by our resource speakers, is the core of all these, then therefore, education, this has to be incorporated in our educational system. If we are going to make a framework out of these, the conflicts, reforms, and armed conflicts that we have can be stopped with our educators as peace educators and as initiators of peace education. The curriculum has to be improved, inserting the different SDGs and also the concept of culture and peace. Culture, the arts, will become the mediating factor for which we can attain quality education and the skills, knowledge, and abilities of our students or our young people will be developed towards preservation of peace. Thus, our next generation will be peace-loving, and they are advocate leaders of peace. Since culture and the arts is the core, then I would like to end my comment on that diplomacy, cultural diplomacy can be the way forward of this efforts, and that in the development of this, we can attain all those that were mentioned by our resource speakers this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Reyes. To make this particular discussion, let me try to recap what are the basic tenets. As been said, there should be mutual respect. And perhaps there we have known what we call the golden rule. Do unto others what you don't want to do unto you. Which means the universal language of humanity is love. But before you could love, in order to attain peace and to attain justice, there is such a principle or tenet that justice is the minimum demand of love. You could never say there is love without justice. And how to go to this justice? There could be certain laws or policies that would give welfare for the people. Otherwise, there is an injustice being committed either in your own country or in the other countries or in the world. Without respecting these rights, there can never be justice. And that would not tantamount to peace. That's why there's a big question. After 50 years, how come there is no peace in Mindanao, here in our country? It's only right now that Bangsamoro, the organic law, has been passed. And hopefully, the next president, after this election, would continue to attain the elusive peace. And this peace is being sought upon, not only here in the Philippines, not here only in Asia, in Europe right now, they're in Ukraine. And the president of Ukraine is calling the world and even asked the president of the United States to be the man of peace so that development would come in. Now, we still have around 30 minutes before we finish this session one. May we request some of the participants to have their questions so that the commentators and those resource persons who are around could make their reaction. Are there any questions from the participants? Yes, Ms. Ma'am Cecil.
Yes, I'd like to thank our commentators to present very personal connectivity to the pathway towards peace, whether in our country or in Africa, and even what you say, beneficial today when there is really the angst of division. It was wonderful, for instance, that Serbia and Kosovo, which were divided from Yugoslavia, could join together in a common statement co-signed by them. So it is possible that you may have been enemies, but there is a way to bridge whatever is the difference. And the moderator had pointed out the importance of respect and law, because our problem now, when you say justice, as he said, when the rule of law to which everybody had supposedly signed or agreed as a member of the United Nations, and you defy the law or you don't agree to implement the law, then there's going to be a lot of division. So the key is letting our people, everyone, respect the law, to know the law and to obey the law, and to do it with equal justice. For instance, we have Malu and Cecily, a very basic example. In the Philippines, we joined and worked together with South Koreans in terms of the war. But it was through a kind of interaction among artists that we bonded strongly with Seoul and the Philippines in a very, let's say, a heartfelt way, not superficial, but there is a kind of a bond that has been established through artists. Malu, for instance, has been working on providing plays that depict the situation of conflict. And as we see in, oh my God, what's happening in broad daylight when you have children and women literally massacred by bombs. There is a rule. Cecily was worried about the atom bombs or whatever other annihilating bombs. And we have a UN program for disarmament, and yet it is not being followed. What can be done? And I think it's the voices of people. Look at what happened with Black Lives Matter. And the United Nations has declared a day against discrimination. In the Philippines, it should be Indigenous Lives Matter as well. So I think if everybody provides that common bond that lives matter, you don't destroy lives, but you affirm lives, and the artists are necessary components to provide that conscience. So I think if what we're trying to do when we hold or give the platform for action for SDGs communications, it's to harness artists, educators, communicators, scientists to be a creative army, to popularize all of these things. It's not connected with their lives. I mean, like Seoul is so brilliant now with their telenovelas. Can we go into an actual telenovela on the issue of war, how it affects people, and have all of the popular artists work it out? Our continuous songs, poetry, it will reach the heart and hit the mind. And that's what we hope all this gathering that we are undertaken can be noted with all of our countries together with a collective voice to understand culture as an essential ingredient. The moderator said, and everybody said, it's not just for entertainment, not just for after dinner relaxation, but it is an educational force to instill values. Corruption everywhere. If we just instill honesty is still the best policy, it's forgotten. People who are in political influence can defy the law, can escape prison, well, by saying they have poor health or they have influence. Something has to be done. And it's us, the people, and it's the artists who can really hit the heart and the mind so that people will have the strength, like the president of Ukraine, to stand up for commitment and principles. Thank you.
Okay. My question is, from any of the commentators, the international commentators, what would you peace from the perspective of your country and from the perspective outside? And how do you see the world today? Could that be achievable, or could only be for vested interest, and the more inequality would come in here in this world today?
Okay, all right. I have just a one-word answer to that. And the word is education and understanding. We have to understand each other. We may have different cultures, but if we want peace and justice, we need to learn about each other. There has been a lot of misunderstanding between nations and tribes, and often these things have come up as a result of external influences. We have to understand that if we need to coexist, we need to learn about each other. And if we learn about each other, we'll understand each other. And from there, justice and peace will prevail.
So how have you in Manila dealt with the issues of mental health when it comes to this regard? Oh, sorry. Okay. May I ask since we have panel of speakers and commentators, how about can Dr. Reyes or Mr. Commissioner Mando or any of the panelists around could answer that?
One of the things that the NCCA started, and I think it has been pursued from the year 2011 or 2010. At the NCCA, during the time also of Mrs. Alvarez, we started having workshops for healing. We started with with the internet. We put out a message and inquired if there are artists who would like to come together and do modules for healing. And we were able to gather artists among the Christian and then among the Muslim and also among the indigenous Filipinos. And give and take about 15 to 20, I think a certain group even reached 30. And they came together, that was way back in 2011, 2010. And they came together, no, from the different parts of the country. And we discussed, for example, the problem of natural catastrophe and man-made catastrophe. And together, they did modules in visual arts, in dance, in music, in theater, and came up with 3-day design workshops. And then some of them went to the communities nearby and tested it for victims of war, for example, in Mindanao, the children of the refugees, somewhere in Cotabato, they tested their module. And the children who they called themselves ninja because they were all covered and they were so afraid. At the end of the 3-day workshop, they were really so carefree, doing their dance, doing their music and all. I don't know if it healed them of their trauma during the conflict. And this was done in Visayas and also in Mindanao. And now we have these artists who are ready with their modules to go anywhere in the different parts of the country to help in the healing, especially in the mental healing of victims of natural catastrophe and war.
Hello, I'm Frank Rivera from the Philippine Center of the ITI. We have done workshops for the people with disabilities who have always a tendency of hurting themselves. They have lost their confidence. And also, we have done workshops for people in prisons. And the results were okay. Their feeling of being a whole person comes back after the workshop. An example of that is one prisoner at the Muntinlupa Bilibid prison. He was before he was in prison, he was a magician. And we told him during the workshop, use your art in retelling your story and what you have learned from this story, from this workshop. And then we gave him 5 minutes to think it over of how this workshop would help him to become a better person once he gets out of the prison. And his art piece was mind-blowing. He had this toilet paper, tore it to pieces, and was telling this story that he was from a poor family, they could hardly eat, but then he knows that he has something in him that can change it. And what he thought was something not very good. The toilet paper, he ate them all up. And then it came out as a string like a rope, long, long rope. And he said, I used this for this crime. And he was in prison. And he thought the whole world turned him down. And then we gave him the workshop, and we gave him hope. We asked him to sing. We asked him to write, to recite a poem about his life. And then he came out with a box. And then he said, this is me after this workshop. And the box, he opened it, and out came out a kitten. And then he said, I will have 9 lives to save me when I come out of prison. And then he tore to pieces another set of toilet paper and put it in a bowl or in a box, and then stir it, and then try to eat them. And we see noodles. And he said, I can feed my family now that I am back with myself. So the arts can really help people to find themselves, to find their reality and their new beginning.
Yes, Dr. Reyes.
Yes, I would like to emphasize that the mental health is a serious matter in the academe now, especially that we are catering to thousands of students. We are mandated in the academe to really focus our attention on mental health, especially in this pandemic period, and that we have designed several activities, may it be in the culture and the art movement, painting, singing, performing arts, and they have been very helpful as we are reaching out to our students. In a way, we are also inserting lectures on peace development, peace education, so that they can understand also what the trusts of the educational system of not only letting them acquire skills and abilities to become engineers, but rather develop in them a strong sense of love for peace, respect all the values that we need to inculcate in our young people. And all these are always incorporated in all aspects of the subject areas of the curriculum that we are offering to our students. As I mentioned a while ago, that the SDGs now are incorporated from a single subject area of the whole curriculum of the program, educational program of a student acquiring higher education. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, in fairness to the government, the Congress has passed a law professionalizing the practice of the mental health. So it's not only the psychiatrists in the medical field, but you do have registered psychologists. That's why nowadays, during these times of pandemic, the registered psychologists and of course psychiatrists are professionals. So they provide really actual training, and they really have these particular people who could really help the youth, particularly during this pandemic. Now, it's already 5:46. Now, to wrap up this particular first session, one of the speakers was saying, or our resource person, is the term Ubuntu, from no less than the granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi. And she says, I am because of what you are. And this pertains to interconnectivity of people, regardless whether an African, European, Asian, we're all connected. But I'd like to add further, as a Catholic or a Christian, that all of us are made in the image and likeness of God. We have that dignity and integrity that this creation is for all of us. And with that, this particular session on session 1, we could have this particular elusive peace, that binding, that let us, of course, there's always problem, but we could always look above and see for ourselves that there is always hope. And the culture and arts is actually a tool because it uncovers and heals whatever the deep emotions, the deep trauma. That's why it is therapeutic. And because of this endeavor, the Philippines right now has this particular historical event to start here at PNU, this cultural, this resiliency on arts. And without going, so we will now be preparing for the second session. And we like to thank everyone for participating. And are there any comments from the organizer before it's already 5:48? Because session 2 is about to come in. So we could have a break, a leeway, a transition, so that you could have your biometric break. You could drink water, or if there's a song that could be done for the 10-minute break before the 6 o'clock or the session 2.
Thank you, Dr. Aldrin Sanchez, for moderating our first session. And that ends our first session, but definitely not our call for peace and social justice and the need to normalize it. Well, as mentioned by Dr. Aldrin, I think we will have for 5 minutes a bio break. Of traumas caused by COVID. At this juncture, here's a video to reflect for caring for the environment and fighting climate change. From Bohol Community of Artists, with casting singing directed by Gardy Labad.
I am the Word, and by me you shall be. Be the womb and cradle, all-encompassing waters. Bear forth creatures, wild and free, let them be.
Grandiose land, rise above the waters, harbor flora and fauna, countless and boundless. O mighty wind, breathe of life you shall bring. Let birds and bees take wings, make lively the world that fishes may thrive by your constant stirrings. Trees stand strong in your rhythm, and the fragrance of flowers be spread the world over. And make me a great ball, powerful fire. Let it shine so high to be the earth of happiness and wellness. Here is man and woman. Nurture them. Give them strength. Let them put to good use all the fruits and harvests. Let them bask in your bounty. Make mankind our masterpiece. But man took his pen, inked it with avarice and greed. He made all of creation his writing pad, respelled rape into progress, exploitation into development, and wrote powerful mantras. The elements are our slaves. Let the land and the waters yield more for our future to the universe and beyond. Out of their folly, Mother Nature flinches. In pain, she rebukes man. The land sends tremors. The wind gushes forth cyclones. The waters lash out storm surges. And the sun ignites wildfires here and there. The climate runs berserk out of sync. Paradise is dying. We need to wake the spirits. Man must repent, implore the elements to appease Mother Nature. Deities of the shorelines of life, today we dance. We offer atonement. Please heal our land. Heal humankind. Paradise be regained as we restore the Lord's pen.
The video resonates the theme for our session 2, Environment and Climate Change. This session will be moderated by Professor Brian De Yuta, a member of the Faculty of Behavioral and Social Sciences of the Philippine Normal University.
Thank you very much, Professor De Leomos. And once again, good afternoon and welcome to the SDGs RESILIART Festival for today's second plenary session of the agenda for the Global Public Forum. Our topic to be discussed is in the area of environment and climate change. For many, a warming climatic system is expected to impact the availability of basic necessities like fresh water, food security, and energy, while efforts to redress climate change, both through adaptation and mitigation, will similarly inform and shape the global development agenda. The links between climate change and sustainable development are very strong. In the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, member states express their commitment to protect the planet from degradation and take urgent action on climate change. The agenda also identifies in its paragraph 14 climate change as one of the greatest challenges of our time and worries about its adverse impacts undermine the ability of all countries to achieve sustainable development. Truly, the survival of many societies and of the biological support systems of the planet is at risk. This afternoon, I am very much honored to be with renowned climate protection advocates and environmentalists across the globe who will share their expertise and experience in taking urgent action to combat climate change and its impact in our environment. They are frontrunners in various international and intergovernmental forums for negotiating the global response to climate change. Our plenary speakers this afternoon are composed of the following. The founder of Grace Machel Trust from South Africa, none other than the widow of President Nelson Mandela, Madam Gracia Machel Mandela. Next, we do have the ambassador of Mexico to Ghana, His Excellency Enrique Escorza. The Chief of Navy from Ecuador, Rear Admiral Romel Vasquez Bermudez, and the National Coordinator of Kiribati Action Network, a recipient of Commonwealth Point of Light by Queen Elizabeth II, Ms. Pelinice Alopa. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you our international speakers for their messages.
I'm so happy and honored to have the opportunity to join you in this extraordinary initiative promoted by my very special and beloved sister, Cecile Alvarez. Our world has thrown millions and millions of people into extreme poverty. People trapped into armed conflict, into forced migrations, and marginalization of all kinds. Our world is crying desperately for healing. We have destroyed the best of what the planet has offered to us. We are confronted in amazement of how leaders of the world fail to understand that the planet is our home, but this home belongs also to new generations to come. We are in a world where a few are becoming extremely rich, while millions and millions are, as I mentioned, in desperation, in fact, without knowing when and how to get the next meal. We have women who are being brutalized by those once they have said they love them and they should protect them. I could go on and on and on. And all this inequality, injustice, extreme poverty, conflict has been exacerbated by COVID-19. These are bad news, but the good news is whatever are the challenges we are facing today are man-made. It is our making. Therefore, we have the power to reverse, to rebuild, to renew, to reconstruct, and really to make of what God has given us the best gift for us, to give life of dignity for every single human being on earth. I really applaud this initiative of bringing the best of artists, of activists, joining decision makers to pause and reflect and to seek for renewal, to seek for the best which is still in us as humans to offer to one another in solidarity. I wish you really days and days of reflection, of commitment, of joy, and I'm hoping that at the end, your voices will be listened high and loud by those who have the power to lead the change. But we as people, we have to be there and make sure that our voices will never be ignored, and we will be part of the reconstruction and the rebuilding which is required after this pandemic. It is an opportunity which we shouldn't miss. I wish you all the best, and I'll be happy to hear about the outcomes of this extraordinary initiative. And Cecile, my beloved sister, I really marvel at your indomitable spirit of fighting and fighting always for the good of everyone. Be blessed, and I hope all of you will really have a wonderful, wonderful days of working together. Thank you.
I am extremely honored to attend virtually to this forum. The scope and importance of the topics of discussion are not only relevant, but indispensable to move our respective societies to a full recuperation after the pandemic. Mexico has a strong connection with the Philippines, built upon many years of shared history, but also because we have many similarities. We stand proud in the world arena as rightful owners of strong cultures, rich natural resources, and a geography of incomparable beauty. As you well know, Mexico has a very active embassy in the Philippines under the guidance of Ambassador Gerardo Arredondo, who has made a fantastic job to underscore the strong ties between the two countries, especially on the historic link by virtue of which many trips of the Galeón de Malina took place, inaugurating a commercial route connecting Asia with Mexico and Latin America. As you well know, the Galeón de Manila Day is a UNESCO program which both countries fully support. I am posted now as Ambassador of Mexico to Ghana, and in this region of the world, I have witnessed the importance that trade and tourism have for the development of countries. And now, after the pandemic, we need to unite efforts towards achieving the much needed economic recuperation we all need. But we need to do it responsibly and incorporating all sectors of society, including minorities, women, children, and certainly our youth. Tourism can be a very powerful tool to boost economic performance, but nowadays it requires, or I should say it demands, comprehensive policies to facilitate travel. It is a must to create protocols of international observance, to enable travelers to move with certainty, and that they do not constitute additional barriers or make it incredibly expensive the possibility of traveling abroad. We have seen the tremendous distortion created after COVID-19 in the international movement of people, and the tragic consequences for many families that depend upon the tourism industry. Mexico, as one of the most attractive tourism destinations in the world, is pushing forward new and ambitious strategies to bring the industry back to pre-pandemic levels. I am certain that we need to work collectively to exchange experiences, best practices, and doing all at our reach to ensure that our countries develop at its fullest their tourism capacity. I see here in Western Africa the tremendous potential of tourism and the value of such activity to move people out of poverty. The world is a very small place, and we need to make it accessible, the ability of individuals to travel and to know the many wonders that the world has to offer. I encourage you to think in ways to enhance tourism as a tool for development of countries. And truly to do that, it is possible. And I do believe that it is possible if we understand that many things change after COVID, and therefore we need to adapt and to meet the new challenges without hesitation. Creativity, imagination is a must in the world we're living in. And I'm pretty sure that the meeting of the minds that you are proposing here today will achieve such result. Thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of the event.
The Ecuadorian Navy sends a warm but formal greeting to the UNESCO, the Philippines government, and sponsors for this relevant event within the framework of policies for sustainable development and environmental protection. We reiterate our commitment to the Galapagos Marine Reserve, declared a World Heritage Site since 1978, and its importance was reaffirmed at the 26th Conference of the Parties to Climate Change, COP26, held in Glasgow, Scotland. We are committed to the Galapagos. Our government has declared its intention to enlarge the existing Galapagos Marine Reserve by 60,000 square kilometers, in addition to the existing 130,000. The past June 8th, on World Oceans Day, Ecuador signed an East Tropical Marine Corridor Agreement with Colombia, Costa Rica, and Panama, and at COP26, Ecuador, together with the three mentioned countries, agreed to a further commitment for the protection of the tropical East Marine Corridor. As the General Commander of the Ecuadorian Navy, I wish all of you success in this event. I know that the outcome will turn in favor of public policies that encourage us to keep improving the oceans and environmental protection standards in the world.
Kami bene ni Neuri, na itungaru aben nariaw isa karikibay. Kamrapan rokomi nangora, akam natikiroy, o nabew kilibets, yomi ni kabene. Ti Neuri, ti Roy, o ti Tabumo. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the coordinators of this program for giving us in Kiribati the opportunity to share with you this morning. Neuri from Kiribati, a nation of water. What makes Kiribati unique? It's our environment. It has the biggest EEZ zone in the world, 3.5 million square kilometers. The biggest ocean space in the world. It's the first country to see the sun and say good morning to the world. The international dateline lies through Kiribati. It is the only country that lies in all four quadrants of the hemisphere, the north, the east, the south, and the west. And it has the biggest atoll island in the world, called Kirismes, and only 3 meters above sea level. And what makes Kiribati more unique are its people and its culture. Our culture is created or formed through the connection and relationship of 3 words. Karawa, the heavens, Tarawa, the land that we live in, and Merawa, the oceans or the seas. This is our environment. Humans, animals, plants, and all creatures that live on these 3 have survived over thousands of years, creating their way of life, their norms called culture, and our identity. Our dance and songs are part of this culture. All our dance and songs tells us stories of everything related to our environment and how we see the world around us. Our emotions, values are expressed in our songs and dances, our skills and arts. But today, we are singing new songs relating to the cries of our motherland because of climate change. We are singing of lands eroding away. We are singing of rising waters. We are singing of rising temperature. We are singing of our fight to stop climate change. We are pleading to developed countries to help us. This is not acceptable that people in Kiribati are losing their land, drinking brackish water and food, getting sick, or are being displaced. And not of their doing, but from others. Kiribati and his children will not accept this. We will not drown. We will fight, and we will continue to fight for our survival, for our children, so that our children can continue to live peacefully on their own land and continue to sing and dance in their own language. I believe in you. Like Mr. Fuller said, we are called to be architects of the future, not its victims. So let's stop climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. So those are our international plenary speakers. And just this afternoon, I was reminded that Kiribati should not be pronounced as Kiribati, but rather as Kiribati, the only country that lies in 4 quadrants of our continent, of our world, and the first to see the land. Thank you to our plenary speakers internationally. And at this juncture, we are also delighted to have one of our outstanding senators. She chairs the Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Climate Change from the Senate of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Honorable Senator Cynthia Villar.
I commend Ms. Cecil Guidote Alvarez, the director of the Earth Savers UNESCO Dreams Ensemble and our Artists for Peace, for organizing this SDGs International RESILIART Earth-Saving Festival, which aims to harness the power of art and media as tools for climate action and in providing education in the Sustainable Development Goal, or SDGs. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of it through this video message. As chairperson of both the Committee on Agriculture and the Committee on Environment and Climate Change, I welcome initiatives like this which help us focus on achieving our targets under the SDGs and in raising awareness on the impact of climate change. Indeed, your activity is timely given that the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific just released its SDG Progress Report 2022, where it reported that there is a slowed progress in achieving SDG due to the increase in the frequency and intensity of human-made crises and natural disasters, including the onset of COVID-19 pandemic. The same report also revealed the increase in vulnerabilities of disadvantaged groups, such as the poor household, rural population, children, women, and the persons with disability, as their access to food, education, and livelihood have deteriorated during the pandemic. Further, the report said that there has been regression on achieving responsible consumption and production and in climate action under SDGs number 12 and 13, respectively. While we may be at the tail end of the pandemic, with majority of the people having received vaccination, we realize that we still have to brace its adverse consequences for many years ahead. Thus, all stakeholders, both from the public and private sector, must earnestly work hand in hand to arrest the regression, and this RESILIART Festival is a good way to rally people and communities towards the SDG and in preparing them to be climate resilient. Thank you for this inspiring work, and we wish you to have a most productive festival. God bless and stay safe.
To our distinguished guests, heads of offices, our organizers, and participants, a pleasant day to all of you. It is an honor to join you in this year's Sustainable Development Goals RESILIART Festival and Forum for Health, Peace, and Climate Justice. Amid the pandemic, that continue to pose challenges in our lives. Art and media remain as thriving platforms for both the public and private sectors to call for positive change and solidarity. These platforms have gone a long way in raising public awareness on environment protection and advocating for our sustainable development goals. I would like to commend the organizers, including the Earth Savers Dreams Ensemble, UNESCO, Artists for Peace, and their partners across the world for coming together and realizing this initiative. The PCOO and the whole of government is one with you in building more opportunities for a more sustainable planet for our future generations to experience. Thank you very much.
At this juncture, we're also enjoined with our interactive commentators from countries of France, Zimbabwe, Switzerland, and of course, the Philippines. All our interactive commentators are given 5 minutes to share their insights on the concerns discussed by our plenary speakers, and at the same time, express their important views on environment and climate change. As we have done it during the first plenary, a signal of red mark will be given to indicate that you only have 30 seconds left out of your 5 minutes for your comments. We will start with our international commentators to be followed by the delegation from our national commentators. Allow me to present the names of our international interactive commentators before each of them present their comments and insights. First, we have the President, the Chief Executive Officer of Energies 2050, Questor Arts Planet from France, Mr. Stephanie Pourfray. Next, we have a member of the Parliament from Zimbabwe, Honorable Tafanana Zulu. We also have an actress who is also from Zimbabwe, Ms. Gertrude Fumayaramba. Here we also have the Dean of the Faculty of the Sea and Environment from Universidad del Pacífico, Guayaquil, Commander Julian Reyna. And to complete our international commentators, we can probably have Mr. Stefani to present his comments first.
Hello everyone. So sorry for my problems about being connected. So thank you so much for this invitation, and also for the so great discussion so far, and also by the significant effort by the team, Cecilia, first of all, and also all the partners, Victor and others. So maybe just to jump back to the discussion about climate and also environment. So I think we are facing something which is quite contradictory, because as we are all humanists here, we all hope that something as a common sense will rise our concern, and at least will allow a better, let's say, sharing about responsibilities and also consequences, and why not about rebuilding a common perspective, you know. But frankly speaking, I'm negotiating since some decade, and doing some INDC, you know, the strategies, the long-term strategies, the low-carbon strategy, both at national, local levels, as well as supporting governments and also the international climate agenda. And frankly, we are lacking ambition. And this is something dramatic, because we know the trends we are working, and so they are not sustainable, and they are clearly also supported by science. And you remember all the last IPCC reports published a few days ago, the assessment report 6 on adaptation, and it was more than dramatic. Because why? Especially if we connect with SDG and also with the crazy situation against Europe, with Ukraine also in addition. So at the end, just to say that they even now consider adaptations to be part of the mitigation process, and that we need to focus on resilience is more than only adaptation, because we will not be in position to be adapted. So what does it mean? It means if we also take into account the point about fossil fuel subsidies worldwide, which cost billions of euros per year, you know, for, let's say, very intensive emitting, let's say, fuel, it's really something we need to address. So what can be the answer? to keep it short and to be also in the spirit of this very interesting debate about how to bridge things, but SDG, but also humanism, arts, culture, and everything. So, and our lecture is that we need to make people to reconsider that climate change is not something we need to discuss only on a technical and a policy, but we need to bring back emotion. What does it mean? And emotion is not something, you know, broad and separate to be culture, to read, to whatever we want, but emotion because guys don't feel concerned. And in the previous panels, it was also the point about disabilities and also the guys which are suffering everywhere. But guys are not concerned because they don't suffer as themselves. So if you don't experiment what other experiments, it's something very difficult to say because maybe you are not directly probably responsible for something and you are sometimes captured by, you know, consumption patterns and everything. So how can we just change this trajectory and make people feel concerned, even if they are not directly impacted? Because, for example, if I look to my country, my neighbors, they are impacted, but at the end, governments will pay for something, they will complain, they will find an option to go there. And if we go back to Africa, for example, when we spend so many projects there, looking, for example, for cities, everybody knows, say, okay, we need cities to be at the forefront. And we are working on this issue at the territorialization of climate, you know, objective with a structured dialogue with governments, local governments. So it's very good. But on the other side, guys have no access to external funding. They are not in position to mobilize international direct investment. They are not even in position to mobilize climate finance. So what does it mean? It means that at the end, we need to think differently, or we can make all of these people to the same concern, the same reporting, and to, at the end, be in position to discuss, even if they are not connected. And again, emotion, arts, culture is a bridging part. Because I just want to give an example, and Cecilia know very well this point, because we had many, let's say, conversation during the COP, the Climate COP conference. And we have an exhibit, and it's very interesting. It's called Art Planet. And we try to bridge the technical, let's say, concerns into citizen lives. But we want them to go beyond. And the theme we are using is not very sexy, by the way. We speak about migration, we speak about, you know, very difficult points, but we want guys to offer the arts. And at the end, we support adaptation projects in Africa in small communities. So like that, people readapt themselves to say that even when it's supposed to be just arts, it can also support some real projects in real life of people which are suffering and struggling about climate change consequences. So just to say how it is important. And again, if we want guys to be on the street, but not only to be activists, we need to educate. And arts also, it's a point to make people concerned by so many topics. What does it mean? It means, for example, consequences of loss and damage, for example, is very critical for gender issue, for livelihood, for local communities. But how can I make it realist? Something to be real in the daily life. And again, if we speak about, you know, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, the carbon market, the new market mechanisms, okay, it's good. But what does it mean? It means voluntary market, it means carbon. What is the offset value, the additionality of my decision as a citizen when I will consume something here? So again, we need guys not only to be activists, but also to be so educated, so they will be in position to understand and to bridge knowledge, to be in position to concretely change their behaviors. And on this issue, I think again, emotion is something very important. Not only photography, but also poems, music, theaters, all type of, let's say, emotion can bridge, but within this emotion, we need also to bridge knowledge. And for example, about the water issue, we already have almost 3 billion people which are suffering about scarcity of water. But for many guys, it makes no sense. But if it is connected with something piece of art demonstrating the reality of lives, you know, so going beyond the community of guys to be concerned about water, but also to be on the public markets, to sell piece of art and to explain, so at the end, to just advocates by testimony. And I think this is something very important to bridge these three pillars: environment, climate change, and now also culture and arts. So I will stop here so far, but I will be more than happy to go beyond just after my colleagues also to give some feedbacks and to feed the process and the discussion. So thank you so much.
Also, this afternoon, we have the Honorable Member of the Parliament of Zimbabwe. Here we have Honorable Tafanana Zulu. Sir.
Thank you very much, Brian. I would like to first thank the chairperson for South-South Cooperation Council for Sustainable Development, Mr. Victor. And I also want to extend my gratitude to UNESCO Cecilia. Work together with the chairperson for South-South Cooperation to make this event happen. Mr. Brian, I would like to start to touch the issues, the topic that you invited me to touch on. Global challenges in the field of climate change impacts immigration, that is conflicts, the fourth industrial revolution, and lately the COVID-19 pandemic, and many other continue to cause untold suffering and across the nations with no respect to political boundaries. Climate change is arguably the greatest single threat to peace, security, and sustainable development confronting mankind. Some of the causes of the climate changes include increased greenhouse gases, emissions, that is carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, use of fossil-based fuels to include your coals, petrol, diesel, and thermal energy. Industrial processes and products used, for instance, for your fertilizers, cement manufacturing, cooling system, only to mention but a few. Deforestation, wildfires, agricultural manure and fertilizers. Waste management, solid waste, water waste. Small islands, developing states, that is SIDS, are being forcibly displaced by sea levels rise and extreme weather events in the field of hurricanes, violent storms, and cyclone, among others. Elsewhere in Africa and in the Middle East, people's survival and livelihoods are under siege from water and food insecurities, as well as desertification due to climate change. Of note, 5 of the warmest years on Earth have been recorded between 2015 and 2019, with temperatures in countries like India soaring above 50 degrees Celsius, and catastrophic heat waves being experienced in some parts of Europe, that is Spain and France. To that end, climate change impacts are already being felt in all sectors, to include agriculture, energy, tourism, health, but to mention a few. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, has warned that the current national determined contributions, NDCs, by nations are not ambitious enough to avoid the looming climate crisis beyond 2030. Climate change impacts disappropriate affects individuals and nations. The women, the youths, indigenous communities, and the disabled are among vulnerable and at the greatest risk to climate change impacts due to their sensitivity to climate alterations and their low adaptive capacities. Current climate change impacts confronting mankind today are as a result of the industrialization by developed countries who amassed wealth by burning fossil fuels into our environment. Therefore, it is only fair and just for the developed countries to contribute more meaningful and constantly towards enhancing adaptive capacities of developing states who have to confront the catastrophic impacts of the climate change. Parliaments have a duty to ensure that climate change issues obtaining in the world are appropriately dealt with by their own governments as they bridge the gap between constituencies, governments, and the decision made at the global stages, such as the just concluded the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference of Parties, COP26 in Glasgow of the United Kingdom. The sticking points and resolutions that include issues on increasing ambitions, climate financing, adaptation concerns, transparency, issues of loss and damages, as well as carbon offsets must be tackled. To this end, political willingness of the greatest magnitude of the most vital single ingredient required within the confines of parliamentarians' constitutions mandate of the legislation, oversight, and representation. Accordingly, some of the best practice that parliaments can adopt in greenhouse gas emissions reduction as they recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and moves towards the next net zero agenda include legislating towards the incentivizing green infrastructure, better waste management methodologies, and circular economy. In addition, mainstreaming of climate change-related legislation in order to expedite the transition to clean and renewable energy must be employed. Zimbabwe climate, I'll touch the Zimbabwe climate action highlights that includes, we increased as Zimbabwe the ambition from 33% to 40% greenhouse emissions per capita by 2030, as communicated in the National Determined Contribution that was established in September 2021. We also, as Zimbabwe, mainstreamed our climate change in our National Development Strategy, that is 2021 to 2025. Zimbabwe also launched its National Climate Change Climate Fund, that is NCF, in 2021. The country is implementing the Low Emission Development Strategy, that is LEDS. Zimbabwe is also in the process of crafting a comprehensive climate change bill whose focus will be on climate financing, measurement of greenhouse gas emissions, compliance, reporting, and verification matrix. The country, our country, that is Zimbabwe, has validated and started implementation of the Climate Change Gender Action Plan of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This reaffirms the United Nations General Assembly resolution on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. I thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that informative discussion, literally making us know that African countries right now, particularly Zimbabwe, is moving forward to become resilient in terms of climate change. And I believe that that kind of issue is not just an issue of Zimbabwe, but the rest of the world. But thank you for that information, sir. And also this evening, we are joined with an actress who is also from Zimbabwe to give us a further discussion on the issue of climate change and environment. May I call on Ms. Gertrude Umayaramba.
Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, aye, Zimbabwe. Philippines, Philippines, aye, Manila. Aye, 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 Manila, aye. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
My name is Gertrude. I am an actress. I'm super excited about the conversation that we're holding today. Allow me to say thank you so much to Cecile, and also thank you so much to Victor and the team that have been working tirelessly to get to where we are right now. I'm going to be talking today about the environment. Most of the things have been touched by my honorable, our leaders who have spoken before me. But as an actress, I would like to touch a bit about the environment. With the rich cultural heritage and background that we have in Zimbabwe, we have created a conducive environment through the constitution and the government by acknowledgement of the 16 languages, including sign language. We hold in high esteem our rich cultural diversity, and through this have paved way to its preservation. Our environment, softly, is a peaceful environment and enriching one in every sector. And this has been brought about and bringing growth and development through the Second Republic. I will focus on the arts sector because I am an actress. As an artist, I've since moved from being a mere artist to a recognized one through the support of the National Arts Council of Zimbabwe and our Ministry of Youth, Arts, Sports, and Culture, as they have created an environment serving both local creativity and collaborations between regional, international, and all markets. A peaceful environment brings growth. That is what Zimbabwe is. I'm going to talk about the environment when it also comes to artistic nature. As artists in Zimbabwe, we play drums. And as you can see, the drum is created in a way that we have got wood and animal skin. Because of this, it also affects the environment, but how have we reconciled that in Zimbabwe? We have got organizations in Zimbabwe that have championed the cause by making sure that every year, each person plants a tree. Every year, we make sure and we celebrate the tree planting day. This is one of the ways that we have harnessed our environment when it comes to deforestation. We have also cut down on the use of deforestation, like using trees when it comes to fuel. Because we are an African country that is rich in our culture, in our tradition, we used to use a lot of firewood when it comes to cooking, when it comes to power, when it comes to the day-to-day lives. And this really affected the girl child, because the girl child is the one that mainly went out to fetch firewood when it comes to the household chores. But this then caused the rise in deforestation. There's also the issue of farming, tobacco. It also caused a lot of deforestation, because as people took trees, they then did not replace them. So would like to thank the government of Zimbabwe in the Second Republic for bringing this initiative of each person planting a tree and really celebrating the day of regeneration of life when it comes to nature. Would also like to talk about how our environment has brought tourism back, because we have a lot of indigenous trees in Zimbabwe that then give back to us when it comes to food. For example, in Matebeleland, there is what we call the Mopane tree. The Mopane tree is where a lot of larvae is placed by the butterflies, and these create what we call amacimbi, or caterpillars, which are a very delicious delicacy when it comes to our African food or our Zimbabwean food right here in Zimbabwe. And because of this, it has enhanced our tourism, because we have the platform to give back to the international world when it comes to delicacies and different foods. And because of the preservation of our environment when it comes to fauna, this is really good. Environmental sustainability is the responsibility of everyone. It is the responsibility to conserve natural resources and protect the global ecosystems to support health and well-being now and in the future. I'm going to give some of the examples of environmental objectives that we can use globally and also in Zimbabwe to preserve, minimizing raw material use, minimizing the unneeded use of paper, the reduction of carbon footprint by encouraging coupling in the workplace, the use of recycled plastic where attainable. I'm very excited to share as well that here in Zimbabwe, there are a lot of recycling companies that recycle plastic. So when we throw away plastic, it's then taken and recycled. We also recycle paper. We recycle a lot of fabric. We recycle metal. There's a lot of recycling that happens because we understand the preservation that comes with the environment. The use of recycled plastic where attainable, correct disposal of workplace waste, the reduction of chemical spills and gas leakage at the workplace. The other recommendation that I can share is also a high use of the solar power, because solar power is not dangerous power. It is just natural power that we get from the sun. So I would like to share or to plead with the international community for the muscle that is financial to then empower the different communities, the marginalized communities in attaining this type of power when it comes to solar, because solar power is clean power. The wind power is clean power, and also water power is clean power. Thank you very much. Looking forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gertrude. I was really ignited by that drum you played, even ignite my ecological activism. But nonetheless, it is true. Through arts, we create imagination, and by means of imagination, we can help. Actually, in the Philippines, we do practice the Philippine Arbor Day that is scheduled every 25th of the month, where all public government offices are tasked to conduct tree planting. And if I may add, in 2001, my city here in the Philippines, which is Muntinlupa, was awarded as the Zero Plastic City because in 2001, plastics are not available, no longer available in the market here in that particular city. But thank you for that kind gesture and for showing us that imaginative styles of creating programs and projects to the environment. This evening, we are also delighted to have the Dean of the Faculty of the Sea and Environment from Universidad del Pacifico. I am honored to present Commander Julian Reilly. Sir?
Thank you very much. On behalf of Madam Sonia Roca, Chancellor of the University of the Pacific in Ecuador, I thank to the government of Philippines, to the city of Manila, to UNESCO, to the Philippine Normal University, to distinguished Madame Cecile Guidote Alvarez, UNESCO Artist for Peace and President of the International Theatre Institute, and to distinguished Dr. Victor Sebek, Chairman of the South-South Cooperation Council, for inviting us to participate in this important SDG Resilient Festival, Forum for Health, which has been programmed to focus in peace and climate justice as a healer of traumas caused by COVID. It has been established in the 2020 report of the Strong Project from the Permanent Commission for the South Pacific, CPPS. Here I want to clarify that the Southeast Pacific Ocean region is loosely defined as the eastern side of the South Pacific Ocean shared by Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Chile. The Southeast Pacific region is characterized by 1, high primary productivity, 2, by high level of species endemism, 3, by submarine volcanic ridges with a high density of hydrothermal vents and seamounts, and 4, by upwelling, such as the Humboldt Current of the coast of Chile, Peru, and Ecuador, which produces around 10% of the global fish catch and yields more fish per unit area than any other region in the world. The Humboldt Current system is the most productive marine ecosystem in the world in terms of fish count. However, according to climate scenarios, the frequency and strength of El Niño phenomenon is projected to increase every year. At the same time, global models predict that climate change can shift the Humboldt Current system out of its favorable state in terms of fish productivity and could lead to a moderate decrease in catch potential by 2050 and 2095 from minus 1.6% to minus 3% for Chile and approximately from 0% to minus 7.6% for Peru. At the CPPS region, we are highly concerned about this scenario and recognize that we need to conduct monitor, control, and surveillance activities to tackle an increasing number of multifaceted challenges such as contamination and illegal waste disposal, natural disaster, and illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, IUU. At the end, this case results in just an example of what is happening around the world with our oceans. That's why I want to highlight the importance of the SDG number 14, submarine life, that UNESCO and the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission have proposed to United Nations as part of the Sustainable Development Goals. Marine scientific research results so important that not to conduct it, not to understand the seas, becomes probably the most dangerous threat for Earth's species survival, even worse than a nuclear war. I know you can think I am exaggerating, but I'm going to explain why I am making this catastrophic affirmation. Nuclear weapons are designed to explode with an enormous amount of energy in milliseconds, covering tens of square kilometers. And nature can respond really slow to those processes and fast changes. It is going to need decades, maybe centuries, to recover the environment, as we have experimented in Chernobyl's disaster. Now, can you imagine what will happen when we damage not tens of square kilometers, but the 72% of the surface of the Earth? And we don't destroy it in milliseconds, but in centuries. Ocean covers the 72% of Earth's surface and has resisted centuries of fishing devastation, waste pollution, contaminated river waters, and CO2 absorption. By the way, saving us from dying poisoned by breathing these greenhouse gases. Nature is going to need millions of years to recover from our long and tough punishment to our oceans. Now we can see clearly that the main threat to humanity is not to pay attention to our oceans. There is our water, there is our food, there is our oxygen, there is our air thermostat, there is our life cradle. It will take millions of years to the nation to recover the oceans. Unfortunately, we humans don't understand it. For example, recalling that this forum has been taught for health, peace, and climate change, and as a healer for trauma caused by COVID, which has been a great idea. However, I can assure you that probably the least studied environment for COVID development during this pandemic was the ocean. If Madame Cecile Hidate Alvarez allows me, with all my respect, to borrow her wise words and paraphrase them, I will say that, open columns, I envision a world free from poverty, pollution, ignorance, injustice. This must be done through, I add here, marine culture, so that it is peaceful. We have to develop minds and hearts that care and share. Close columns. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commander Julian. Truly, good governance and enabling environment and proper human activities are needed measures in order to reduce the negative impacts of human activities to marine environment. Out of your discussion, sir, I better understand that changes in and improvement in the control of human activities are really necessary to manage the use of our oceans and marine resources. Thank you very much, sir. And also, this evening, I am very much glad and delighted to present and to complete our international commentators. He is the founder of Environmental Mobility Research Unit from Switzerland. Here we have Mr. John Marazita. Sir?
Okay, good afternoon, friends and colleagues. It's nice to see all of you together. A warm magandang gabi to our hosts in the Philippines. How can I follow such an amazing group of panelists? Like the rest, I'd like to thank Cecile and Victor for putting this together and for inviting me and to bring in the small island perspective. So climate change, it impacts all of us. But unfortunately, I think that small island states bear the brunt of the impacts of climate change. And many of the previous speakers, they were discussing projections, what's coming in the future, you know, what we need to prepare for. But for small island states, they are really feeling the brunts of climate change, of sea level rise. And I'd like to give you a couple of tangible examples so that you can keep in your mind. In 2015, for example, there was Cyclone Pam. Perhaps many of you remember this time. Cyclone Pam devastated the island country of Vanuatu. Vanuatu is, using the example of Pelenice's home island of Kiribati, Vanuatu is about 2,000 kilometers away from Kiribati. So you wouldn't expect much of an impact, but because Cyclone Pam hit at a time that Kiribati was experiencing an abnormally high tide, the sea surge that had come from 2,000 kilometers away combined with this abnormally high tide and caused mass destruction. It caused a wall of water to wash over the atoll. It destroyed infrastructure, it destroyed hospitals, homes. The country was unable to function for several weeks as it rebuilt. Just 4 years later, from the Caribbean side, unfortunately, because I work with small island states, a lot of my work is to be sent to islands that have been hit by hurricanes. So in 2019, the Bahamas was hit by Hurricane Dorian. Now, the Bahamas is often hit by hurricanes. It's one of the most hit countries, most impacted countries. But what was different is that sea level rise had brought tides higher. And as Hurricane Dorian swept across the Bahamas, there was also an abnormally high tide. And as the sea surge mixed with this abnormally high tide, there were 60 lives lost. Now, I know that it's quite common in the Philippines and East Asia to have casualties after tropical cyclones, unfortunately. But the Bahamas, it had really been 60 years since there was mass casualties from a hurricane. So this was something entirely new. They didn't know how to react. The people didn't know how to react. They had the storm above them, a Category 5 hurricane, and they had the sea surge and high tides coming in from below up to several meters high. And unfortunately, many lives were lost, and there's still not a way to rebuild from this. So from this context, small island states have been considered vulnerable, and donor partners are investing a lot of money into infrastructure. But in the media, these small island states are often seen as victims, as future climate refugees, as people who will have to leave their country. They're living on borrowed time. And what happens when your people are considered a victim? You know, your country cannot get investment. Your whole life is put onto hold because you don't know where you're going to go. And in the past few years, as you hear from Pelenice, small island states are starting to fight back from this narrative. They're starting to look into their local and indigenous knowledge to see how their ancestors responded to disaster. Because in Kiribati, for instance, the settlers have lived on the islands for 2 millennia. They have witnessed extended periods of droughts, abnormally high tides, and they have even coined this term king tide, which you may hear associated with Miami when they get flooded by high tides. But this was really coined by the Pacific Islands. And they have their own ways to react, and they have their own ways to build around this. So although the urban center, for instance, in Kiribati was heavily impacted after Cyclone Pam and the sea surge, the remote islands that still live on traditional livelihoods, they were less impacted. They were able to rebuild quickly. They had support systems in place for displacement. And we have a lot to learn from this. I think that we need to keep in mind that the way forward for adapting to climate change, it's not only through adaptive infrastructure projects. In small island states, that's a lot of times seawalls, land reclamation, but the local communities need to be involved and share their knowledge. So this is, of course, South-North cooperation, but the next horizon for these communities needs to be cooperation with other islands. The South-South cooperation that Victor is really spearheading, and bringing together parties in the Caribbean, parties in the Amazon, parties in the Pacific coast of Latin America, in the Pacific Islands, bringing them together to share experience, to share knowledge, to begin building knowledge around environment in their own way and on their own terms, so that they're not seen as victims, but they're seen as warriors, as resilient communities who are there to fight, who are not going to give up and leave their country, but they're going to stay and fight. So I think with that, that's my comments. So I thank you and look forward to the further discussion.
Thank you, Sir John. Indeed, sir, disaster risk reduction is an integral part of social and economic development. And if a country would want to go for sustainable development in the future, this area should be taken into account. Actually, also, sir, may I add, in 2010, with the passage of Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction Management Act, it played a crucial role in shifting our country's focus from disaster response to a more proactive disaster risk preparation, knowing that the country is being visited by 15 typhoons a year. Nonetheless, thank you for that, sir. And of course, this evening, we are also delighted to be joined by our national interactive commentators. To start with, we have here the Vice President for International Theater Institute of the Philippines, May I call on for his comments and insights, Mr. Frank Rivera. Sir?
Hello, good evening. This is Frank. The SDGs may just be the only bridge that can save us, that can save the world from the inevitable. We have overused and abused every resource the earth has generously provided us. And we are now paying the price that we can no longer afford. What a wonderful idea that the United Nations have come out with the Millennium Development Goals that have evolved into the SDGs. The Philippine Center of the UNESCO ITI Earth Savers, headed by Cecil Guidote Alvarez and former Senator Jose Lina, advocates the SDGs with the Pixel Earth Media Recharge team headed by CJ Andaluz that have gone around the countryside to promote the SDGs. The environment, we are most affected by climate change. The Philippine team has reached out to the indigenous peoples to be aware of this as they are the ones so deeply involved as the mountains, forests, rivers, and lakes are their immediate environment. We are trying to strengthen the bridge for us to have a smoother trip to the future. During one of our trips, we have discovered that in Central Luzon, specifically in the province of Tarlac, its Honorable Governor Susan Yap has done leaps and bounds in this area. Even before the advent of the SDGs, Governor Yap is linked into it. The Pixel team video the Tarlac project.
Maunlad na bayan, progresibong lalawigan, serbisyong maaasahan, serbisyong mayap, tatak Tarlac. Ang Sustainable Development Goals o SDGs ay mga global goals na mahalaga para makamit ang sustainable development sa mga bansa. Mabago ang mga komunidad at maitaas ang antas ng buhay ng mga higit na nangangailangan. Isa sa mga pinakamahalagang isinusulong nito ay ang pagiging inklusibo sa lahat ng aspeto ng buhay. Dito sa lalawigan ng Tarlac, lubos naming naiintindihan at pinahahalagahan ito, hindi lamang sa pagkamit ng economic progress, kundi para na rin masiguro na ang bawat Tarlacenyo ay may access sa basic needs at mga oportunidad na magpapatibay sa kanila at magbibigay ng kumpiyansa sa kanilang sarili para mapaghandaan ang kanilang kinabukasan. Bahagi ng adhikain ng ating provincial government ay ang bumuo ng mga sustainable na lungsod at komunidad. Pinagtitibay ng Model Housing Development Program sa Sitio Baag sa San Jose ang iba pang mga socialized housing projects sa ating lalawigan, lalo na ang mga lugar na may local shelter plans. Ngayong araw, tutungo tayo sa bayan ng San Jose.
Nandito po tayo sa Sitio Baag. Bali, parte ho ito ng Barangay Iba sa San Jose. 14 na bahay po ito na ipinamahagi sa mga katutubo natin, indigenous people.
Joining us today mula sa bayan ng San Jose, we have Mayor Romeo Capitulo. Kamusta, Mayor Capitulo?
Mabuti po.
Oo. Mapunta tayo dun sa ating programa, proyekto sa Sitio Baag, no, yung housing na ginawa po natin. Para sa inyo po, Mayor Ong, ano po ang naging importansya at significance ng ginawa nating model housing project sa Sitio Baag?
Unang-una, tuwan-tuwa po kami at nagpapasalamat sa inyo. Dahil nung una, yung ating mga katutubo, nakikita nyo naman kung anong pamamahay sila mayroon. At least nung dyan na po yung programa, nag-blend naman dun sa culture and tradition nila. Sa yung mga pabahay na pinagawa nyo. Kaya sobrang tuwa po sila.
Describe nyo naman po ang naging impact ng proyekto nito dun sa community. At likewise, no, para sa munisipyo ng San Jose at sa buong lalawigan. Anong naging impact? Paano tinanggap ng komunidad?
Una nga po, tuwa po sila. Actually, pagdating sa community, tanggap na tanggap po sila dahil unang-una, yung dating bahay nila, na-blend naman po dun sa design na pinagawa natin. At the same time, yung impact po, nakapag-encourage po na maraming turismo. And also, nababantayan na natin mga katutubo and also nami-maintain yung tradition na kung meron sila.
Beneficiaries po nitong project po natin na ito ay ang mga IP community dito sa Sitio Baag, mga Aita po, na sasakop po sa Abiling Tribe.
Huli ko nga punta, kailangan i-landscape pa natin, magtanim sila ng mga bulaklak para mas green, no?
Tama po. Magiging center of tradition and culture na nila yung lugar.
Maganda itong lugar at maganda po ang klima dito. Maaliwalas, hindi polluted, magiging ano pa ito, tourist spot.
Maraming salamat, Mayor, sa lahat ng mga insights mo at shinare mo sa atin ngayon tungkol sa iyong napakagandang bayan ng San Jose.
Napakaganda po yung live program. Ginagawa po natin RESILIART, in spite na may pandemya tayo, pero nagagawa natin maayos para to show the tradition and also the culture of Tarlac. And also to show also yung beauty and simplicity ng San Jose.
Talagang simply
natural
San Jose. Sustainable cities and communities, the housing project in Sitio Baag, San Jose is one of Tarlac's sustainable development goals, realized and achieved through good governance and world-class service. Edukasyon muna, kalusugan muna, pagkain muna, trabaho muna, kalikasan muna. Pag maunlad ang bayan, siguradong progresibo ang lalawigan. Mula sa pamunuan ng pamahalang panlalawigan at mga bayan ng Tarlac, ako po si Governor Susan Yap, naghahatid ng serbisyong mayap, Tatak Tarlac.
Truly, the government is working hard in a proactive and responsible manner to achieve the SDG goal. So this evening, we do still have some of our commentators. May I call on a composer, painter, Earth Savers actor, and the director of the Handicapable Artist from the Philippine International Theater Institute to give his insight, Mr. Eduardo Pagayo.
Part of this that I can talk about is the recent project that we did with SDGs, ITI, UNESCO, Earth Savers, RESILIART. We did some recently conducted theater arts workshop with the frontliners, prisoners, and handicapable and indigenous people and refugees. So what I found out, my team found out about the connection of the indigenous people with their lands and how they need help from themselves and also the government. Like the Aitas, which are the short, curly, black, brown people, which is the original indigenous people, first people here in the Philippines. They live in Porac, that first workshop that we did in Pampanga. They live in Porac in one of those target practice of the Americans, you know, where they drop bombs. And that's where they live. And from what we learned from them is they also, they need their environment, and it is essential to them. And somehow it's kind of hard for them to survive in there because there's no job opportunities and lack of resources in that area. So they just live there in this mountain, not really developed. After that, I went to part of the San Jose del Monte, Bulacan, and worked with the Dumagats. What we found out is that they're trying to survive with their culture because it's kind of like they're losing it, because most of the young people of the Dumagats wants to get out of that place. When we talk to people about what they think about their place, is like they have this big ancestral land, and then somehow there's a lot of people that are trying to grab it from them. The thing is, they don't fight. They don't. They just kind of like let it happen, and because some of those people is kind of like have some connections or something. The young Dumagats don't want to stay there anymore. They want to get out. So there's a danger of losing their cultures and also they're not going to lose their land because it's an ancestral land, but some part of it are being, you know, used and being built on by some outsiders. The next one that we went through is the Maranao, which are the displaced people of Marawi City. Of course, we know what happened there. They now in Quiapo area, and because most of the Maranaos are businesswomen, so they kind of like survive in the Manila by the same thing. They tried to do some business. They told us they need to go back there. They need their environment where they come from, and they're really having a hard time living in Manila. The indigenous people they can adapt, but it's kind of hard. It seems like a small thing, but it's really a big damage being done to them. So they need help from the government to maintain their livelihood. And I might add here about environment-wise, things I know, because I am from Tondo, is about the Tondo Porcio land. It reminds me, they work on the squatters area, and they just try to get rid of them, and then they put it in one place. And it's just, you can't have these people go anywhere because their livelihood is in Manila. The squatters area during the 70s really create a lot of problems. The thing that I am trying to say here is the people really need their environment because it is essentials to their survival. Also, the indigenous people need help from the government to sustain their ancestral land.
Hi, I'm not Sir Albert. He's still in a very important meeting at the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. But we asked him because he was always one of those who was assigned by DNR to be attending the climate change conference that was occurring every year. And I happened to be joining at that time, or most of the time until my husband passed away, at the COP conferences. And I think what's important to say is one, we have a Paris Agreement. The enemy is carbon, and we have to decarbonize. And I'm so glad that Mr. John Marasita has been stressing the danger. Really, it's not just a danger, it's a real happening of small island states being swallowed by the rising sea. In fact, as early as 1995, in order to popularize, because when, as a senator who was telling about climate change, everybody thought he was crazy that he was scaring people, that there will be sea level rise, the overheating. So it's so important that there is early childhood education and that people understand what this overheating, this hot house means. And that we understand that you take care, and it's wonderful that Ecuador has all these Navy people and this school for the sea and the ocean, to understand that it's a very important carbon sink, like the forest, that if we do not cut our carbon, we will be really, well, overwhelmed by the heat. You know what it means, besides all the forest fires, besides all the people dying of the heat waves, and of course the super typhoons and the super drought. I mean, unless all the countries make or do their emergency action to cut carbon, and I'm so glad that an actress like Gertrude really speaks about everyone's responsibility to cut carbon. Each one can do something, even just by saving energy, and definitely clean energy and not dirty coal. So unless our government officials stop pretending or benefiting the so-called economics of coal, rather than caring for the health of the people and the survival of our planet, then we're all going to disappear from this earth. In 1995, Senator Alvarez held the first climate change meeting and did the Manila Declaration for the Protection of Small Island and Archipelagic States. It was the first year of COP, and the one heading it was the Minister of Environment, who became the Prime Minister, who just retired, who was really pro-environment. If we don't see that sustainable development means that we must keep a balance between so-called economics, which is generally just favoring a few who are having a lot of money for themselves, while so many more poor get into deeper poverty because of the greed of mining that is not responsible, the greed of deforestation. So the simple recycling that an actress is calling for is so important. If this is really spread out to the citizens, my grandchild at 2 years old, I was telling them poems, they look at the Pasig River, how it's got to be early. It cannot be theory. They have to relate to their environment, to their habitat, and see what happens with this thing. We've suffered this, small islands, archipelagic states, but we're not now alone. Even developed countries are going crazy with all of being swarmed with flooding and everything. So unless that's why we're involving artists, educators, communicators, scientists. Unless we popularize science, then we're going to be in trouble, because we have to understand how we are impacted, how what we do in our daily lives is causing all of these problems. And the action must be now, and can you imagine, it's so good that Greta Thunberg, a 16-year-old, could call attention to their future, the need to protect their home. I'm worried for my grandchildren. Everybody says we're almost dead, or we're having trouble with everything by 2015. Of course, I'm dead by now, even any year soon. But my grandchildren will only be 27, 30. It's in the prime of their lives, and they'll not have anything. When we had this meeting, we had all kinds of people, Fiji, Kiribati, Samoa, everybody was crying out that indeed the water is rising. Their development plans, circumnavigating kind of development plans were being drowned already. It cost millions, and they have to allow it to be destroyed and go up higher because the ocean is rising. And it's not a joke, it's a reality. And we have to express this, let everybody be reached out. It is a war for information, for motivating people to be part of a global emergency action to stop violence against mankind and Mother Earth. The first session was on war, and you saw all the bloody carbon going up in the air with all of these bombs, missiles burning. We have to stop this madness. And only the people aroused, informed, motivated, and in schools, that's why PNU is here. Teachers, everybody must be imbued with the passion to really care for creation. For Mother Earth, ailing, we have to help, we have to care, we have to be concerned, we have to act. Stop all the words. Act now, not later.
Greetings from the Philippines. I'm Father Benigno P. Beltran. I belong to a religious congregation called the Society of the Divine Word. We are more than 6,000 priests and brothers in 75 countries. We support the vision to plant 1 billion bamboo by 2030 in accordance with the UN's Sustainable Development Goals and in obedience to the call of Pope Francis in his encyclical Laudato Si on care for our common home. We are a member of Vivat International and we have a seat in the ECOSOC Commission of the United Nations. Why bamboo? Why 1 billion? First reason is climate change. Bamboo absorbs 35% more carbon dioxide than an ordinary tree. A hectare of bamboo absorbs 12 tons of carbon dioxide annually. Second, we would like to prevent erosion and flooding. A clump of bamboo absorbs 30,000 liters of water annually, 1 hectare of bamboo. And then the third is for livelihood. We process the bamboo shoots, we turn the bamboo poles into furniture and construction material. The government estimates that if we plant 1 billion bamboo, this will result in $15 billion annual income for the country. We believe that is even a conservative estimate. We think it will reach up to $25 billion annually if we put up the right factories in the right place, and we will have massive bamboo planting. The United Nations Development Program Country Representative Selva Ramachandran recently visited Secretary Roy Simato of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Secretary Simato asked for help so that we can set up bamboo setups, small bamboo farms, and bamboo seedling nurseries in each of the municipalities of the Philippines. And so we have hope that we can do this, that we can plant 1 billion bamboo, absorb gigatons of carbon dioxide from the air, give jobs to a lot of people, and prevent erosion and flooding, which cause a lot of property damage and even lives. So we would like to call on everyone to join us in the whole Philippines, even in the whole world. We are now partnering with the Global Climate Action Project, and they are building for us an app with geo-tagging feature so that we can monitor the number of bamboo planted. You can see it in Google Maps afterwards once it joins our baseline data. So I would like to thank the United Nations Development Program for your help in our bamboo advocacy. We would like to call on everyone in this planet to do something for climate change. We greet the representatives and delegates of COP26 in Glasgow and hope that we will make a difference, because otherwise climate change will become irreversible and our planet will be destroyed. We have no other choice. This is the only planet that we have. Let us take care of it for ourselves and for future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all our speakers and interactive commentators. Truly, the government is working hard in a proactive and responsive manner to achieve its vision of climate change, resilient and environment-friendly country. Climate change and environmental issues are complex problems. Actions, whether they are to be in policy or project implementation, require the convergence of efforts from many stakeholders. Only through our joint efforts with each country's vision will a resilient society be realized. As mentioned by Madam Michelle Mandela, this planet is our home. To everyone, thank you for being part of this second plenary session in Filipino. Maraming salamat po and mabuhay po tayong lahat. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dayuta, for moderating our session 2, Environment and Climate Change. There you have it, our 2 sessions for day 1. At this juncture, may we invite again Dr. Aldwin Sanchez, Senior Vice President and Dean of Development Academy of the Philippines, for our synthesis.
Allow me to quote from Article 48 of Laudato Si of Pope Francis. Pope Francis writes, "We cannot adequately combat environmental degradation unless we attend to causes related to human and social degradation." Let me begin from Genesis 1, verses 28 to 31. And God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day. The above passage tells us that man has been entrusted dominion over nature. His capacity to exploit, to enjoy the bounty of nature, such as our foods and among others. In view of the foregoing, the statement of Pope Francis in Article 48 that environmental degradation is man's action over environment alongside with human and social degradation. In this light, man's interpersonal relationships in exploiting others' human rights results into environmental degradation. Human beings and the environment or nature are both creations of God. Accordingly, when man forgets to what God has done to us, such as be ungrateful or we have pride, when man misuses or abuses God's gifts are used for pleasure, power, and prestige. And when we refuse to love, that is, the refusal to share, to serve, and the sacrifice, and this is the greatest of them of sin of them all, the wanting not to love other people. As we all know, whenever we alienate ourselves from God, that is sin. Article 48 incarnates at the expense of God's creation because of man's selfishness. Along this line, we are interconnected to one another. Further, we're given the opportunity to share our culture and arts, to have the common language through mutual respect. On the other hand, the minimum demand of love is justice. Hence, there should be laws that are both beneficial to all the stakeholders involved. Without justice, there can never be peace and development. This day one invites us to allow ourselves to accept the uniqueness of each one of us, as we are deemed citizens of the world, and we are just passers of this world. The scars of human conflicts in our own countries, neighbors, as well as the transatlantic reminds us of how inequality and men are treated as mere objects or possessions of another person. In this particular international forum, we ought to return the dignity and integrity of man as well as the environment itself. Otherwise, the ill effects of climate change would drag us, and we have nowhere to live. Thus, we must learn how to respect our only home, planet Earth. We are all interconnected to each other, and this bounty of God's creation for everyone. And as we continue our international forum tomorrow, let the inspiration of hope we gain today be the shining rainbow for everyone. God would not allow to destroy this creation. Thus, we should not forget our relationship to the divine. With God, everything is possible. Back to you, Carl.
Thank you to our partners and to all our organizers. At this juncture, may we invite everyone to answer our evaluation posted on our Zoom platform. And to our viewers, we encourage you to answer our evaluation. We will be posting the evaluation on our official PNU FB page. So that concludes our day one. Tomorrow, we will be seeing each other again at 3 p.m. here at the official PNU Facebook page, and of course, with our organizers here at Zoom platform. Tomorrow, we will be having new sessions, and we will be discussing through those sessions the healthcare reform and sustainable tourism, cultural diplomacy, and inclusive education towards economic recovery. Muli, magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Ako po si Carl De Leomos. Mag-ingat po tayong lahat.